I'm going to call to order the June 29th meeting of the planning board of the town of Rochester. If you would stand to join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. His voice is in my head. Oh, okay.
A learning experience.
So a couple administrative things, we have to approve some minutes, but we have two people out today, but we have a quorum, so I want to make note of that. Peter and Jordan are out. And Greg asked that he call in instead of having to come to the meeting. He has something to do very early tomorrow morning, so. All right, so let's do the roll call
Chair Jones,
here.
Member Roberts,
Yeah.
Member Farmel, here, Member Duda, here, Member Fetcher,
Here.
Member Nelson, and Member Pinsky are absent. So,
Dave Church is here, Dave Gordon's here.
Greg Fulmer
Greg
via Zoom.
is here.
Oh,
All right, let's I'll entertain, I assume everybody's been able to read the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 11th and June 8th. Hans, make the motion. Yeah. Paulina,
And before, I noticed in the minutes a date was missing. I don't know if somebody provided that with you, and I'm not sure what that date was. But it was in the comments or something that I caught, Stacy.
okay.
But other than that, the substance, yeah, I could.
and what are you referencing?
In one of the minutes, I can't remember which one, but there was a statement and there was a blank for the date. That's all.
You don't know which one.
No, not at the moment.
Do you want to check it? We'll hold off to the end of the meeting. And we'll wait
Yeah,
to approve
I can
them.
do that.
Why don't you check it? So we'll hold off on approving the minutes to the end of the meeting. And hang on one second while I get my.
Unless a member of the board had
Any-
provided comment to Stacy.
So why don't you find that section?
Okay.
We'll correct it. Yeah. All right, so we'll hold off on that. The first project on the agenda is Benjamin Foff. It's a lot line. And Bill, you're here for that?
Yes,
All right, and we have a decision. But do you have any comments, Bill?
no, I think the only thing that was requested to be done as the last meeting was to change the labeling on the little drainage there, check to intermittent stream. So done that and that's about it.
Okay, does the board have any other comments?
Well,
No, okay, so I have a decision, you should have that,
I'm sorry, the plan here doesn't appear to be the revised plan. Is it still?
the plan there still has the
Yeah.
old,
If you want to see that.
Still has this field.
those are the old maps. The new maps that I'll sign will have that on.
Yeah.
Do you want to check them to see that they're there?
This is big, no, 27.
Yes.
The new map is in the unit plan, but.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was such a.
All right, so any other questions, comments?
So
All right, so I'm not gonna read the whole decision, but you have the decision. In the agenda, it's referenced in the agenda, the link is in the agenda. So, this is a lot line change. Benjamin Foff. It is, we declared it, well, it is a type 2, seek a type 2. It's two parcels that are being billed. We're eliminating the lot line. Oh, no, we're changing the lot
Just
line.
moving it.
We're moving it. Thank you.
Switching acreage from one lot. to the
And
other.
continuing with the flag lot on one lot and then just moving the size of the other lot, increasing the size of it. So it's fairly simple. On page 2, we have an explanation of the note bill that has to go on there. Note number 1.
Yeah, it's on there already.
Okay, and we also referenced the fact that we wanted the stream to be labeled as intermittent stream, and we did that already, so we have that now. Anybody have any questions about the decision? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the decision.
One real tiny detail
Go ahead.
is that the last line there, it says notes 1 through 6. There's the blank notes.
There is no 1 to 6. So Stacy, we need to change that. The owner shall file in the office of Ulster County Clerk such certified plat bearing the chair's signature. Period. Or comma. You see it there? There's an extra line, last paragraph. I got it. Unless you have it,
I got it.
you got it, okay, so that has to come out. So chair signature within 62 days of the certification, the owner shall have the responsibility to return 4 copies of the plot to the town of Rochester Planning Board within 30 days of filing. Thank you, Bill. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Jennifer, motion, second, Hans? Jennifer makes the motion, Hans seconds. All in favor? Chair votes aye. There were no nays, there's 2 absences. Okay, Bill, that's done with that change,
You go.
and I'll sign the map, or I'll sign this tomorrow with the change.
Yep.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is MHJ Properties, also known as Marshak. Is everybody up to date on that one? You had maps on that one. I sent a long note last night about this one. Bill, you want to tell us what we're looking at in terms of the new map? We're familiar with the old map, which had a driveway on it,
So we,
a proposed driveway, and then you gave us another map with a second driveway on it.
yeah. And there are, some things here on the comment letter that will probably make this improvement to this, but, so I think the primary focus of concern has been, and got to be really just the, lot 3. We haven't really, I don't think there's been any issues regarding lot 1 and lot 2. But it's about lot 3 and the access to that and the, proposed driveway there, so, there's a imaginary driveway here that we called existing. That was carved in, and that was really kind of steep. That's what the board actually went out and walked on when they were out there, as you remember. And so there was, between the comments on that and just measuring what the grade of it was decided to move that down the hill a little bit, so that they could ease that grade some. So that's what we've got shown there is the proposed driveway. And that would go over the other lands of Marshak. And this is MHJ, and it's also Harvey Marshak is MHJ, so it's him that we're proposing have a right of way over that little corner there. To cut through into that.
So Bill, the same person owns the property that the road will be going over and also the development property?
Yes.
Are we going to provide an easement on that?
Yes, that's what I said. There'll be an easement through that little corner there.
Okay,
So, Bill, the RMA is gonna not only be an road maintenance agreement, it's gonna need to have easements.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
so Bill, you remember the issue with this is the applicant came to us last March, not this March, but the previous March. Went away, withdrew the application, went away, put the driveway in that's now called existing driveway. We told them that's probably too steep, but we'll take a look at it. He didn't want us to take a look at it apparently. So he's proposing the other one now called proposed driveway.
Right.
Is that my understanding?
Right.
Does the board understand that?
Mhm.
Okay, so,
Significant undertaking to locate it there since he's actually already has it in place, but he's willing to do what it takes here.
okay. So there's a letter that we got from our engineer indicating what needs to be done in order to get this thing moving forward in any way, shape or fashion. So on page 2 of it, on the first paragraph, he indicates that the essence of it, we need a grading plan. We need the profiles for the proposed driveway. We need all of those engineering details, need to know what the driveway is going to be composed of. how much gravel, how many layers of gravel, how thick the gravel is gonna be, type 1, type 4, whatever it is. We need all of that for Greg to review before we'll go any further with this. So you'll provide us with all of that.
Yes, yeah, and obviously we just got that letter, so
Okay,
as you
yeah,
did too.
the board see Greg's letter. And Bill, at some point in time, we might want to go out there again, but I'm gonna wait for Greg to come back with with the profile, with the analysis of the profiles. The other thing that he mentioned in this letter was, he's not sure, he doesn't think this meets fire code the way it's drawn, because you need a turnaround up top.
Right, yeah, there's multiple items there that he's brought up that we'll be addressing, yeah.
Okay, so we need those addressed. And at the end of the day, this existing driveway that was put in, we're gonna need that to be marked abandoned. We're gonna need
Okay.
that abandoned. And we're gonna need it to be restored to what it was.
Yeah,
And we're gonna be asking for escrow for the new driveway to be built to specs, as well as for the old driveway to be restored in some fashion. Because it was kind of put in without any approvals, that kind of what was. But in any case. Anybody have any questions or comments?
My only comment is stormwater. So when we were out at the site visit, it looked like maybe the culvert. I understand that you're removing the driveway, but the what's labeled as the existing driveway, it looked like the culvert was undersized. And that there was overflow across the top of so understanding what the stormwater controls are.
Right.
For the
And-
driveway, because it does have steep slopes.
and I'll just note that all of that work was done without any engineering design or oversight.
Yeah.
So I claim no responsibility.
Is that what they call a door? Okay, but it's gonna need to be fixed, Bill.
Yeah.
Restored in some fashion,
Yes,
so
yeah, yeah.
we don't have that
Yeah.
overflow and interfering with the other driveway that's being
Yep.
put in according
Sure.
to spec. Okay. Any other comments, Jen? Anybody else? Alina, Bonds?
You addressed the fire situation, so that was
All
my
right,
concern.
so Bill, I hope we get back onto course with this one.
Yeah, see, it's a fair amount of engineering work to be done there, and I'm not an engineer, so. I'm not doing it, so.
But you have an engineer working.
Oh, yeah, we'll try to drag them out when I do this pile of work.
Okay, I'm sure the Marsh would be happy if you did that too.
So, I think, it looks, I believe everything that was in the letter here was, and it was, that's probably what you asked Greg to review. But, just in the general course of things, any overall issues about the rest of the subdivision, I think we pretty much went around everything else, and it was really just this driveway that was, sticky point.
I didn't pick up on anything else. Did any other members of the board, aside from the two driveways, pick up on anything else?
Would you put the setbacks, especially for lot 2
Sure.
and maybe 3, just because.
Yep.
Can't tell on here.
And Bill, don't forget, we're gonna need a letter, maybe you sent it to us, I don't remember, but requesting a waiver. When we finally get the engineering done and approved, you're gonna need just the performative function of asking for a waiver for this driveway, because it doesn't have road frontage, so that's
Right.
another
Okay.
little anomaly here. And so the engineering needs to be proper, or else you may not get the waiver. Anybody else pick up on anything? Dave? I know you did a whole write-up on it, but I think we're good. And Bill, your suggestion, you start working, have somebody start working on the legal issues around the RMA and the easement. Because they can be sticky wickets too,
Yeah,
all right?
and it's not too bad. It's on a couple lots.
Okay. I think that's it.
All right, good.
Is Jiro,
I'm here
okay,
Thank you.
Bill, you're not representing this one, are you? Jiro,
No, I think Eileen's got that.
okay, did you do the,
Good.
you did the maps though, right?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so the next, Jiro. Aguchi, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, approach.
Okay. So you're,
Elaine Bell.
oh, okay, you're in Lakeville, all right, great. Oh, that's so long. Just give me a second here. Here we go. All right, so Elaine, tell us what you're doing here.
Okay, we are, this application is for a lot line improvement. The town board already approved the conveyance of about 0.09 acres of the former Queens Highway right of way. Contingent upon planning board approval of this application. We're requesting approval of the boundary adjustment that combines the remnant parcel with the existing property at 460 Queens Highway. And there's no new lots, no additional development rights requested, and all existing improvements remain unchanged.
Okay, so for the board, all we're doing here is eliminating the line that exists currently between what was the town of Rochester's land and the lands of Juro Gucci. Elaine, and maybe Stacy, you can confirm. We need to see the deal between the homeowners and the town that confirms that they are transferring this land. Did we get that?
Yeah, it'll be in the file.
Certificate of resolution?
Yeah.
I still think.
Okay, so there is something in the file.
Yeah.
Is it at their place?
Yeah.
It's at your. So there's a resolution from the town dated January 22nd, 2026. Signed by the town clerk, which confirms that the intent of the town is to transfer the lands to the applicant. So we have that. Do we have a statement from the applicant about the reasons for
That's on me, Nicola.
some Uniclamp, okay? And that other form, we'll just take the other form
I'm gonna ask Aaron or Kate to sign
and just have them sign that.
Okay.
So we think we have all the forms that we need to proceed with this.
Okay.
All right. So does the board have any other comments or questions? No? No? Okay, so Dave, can you do a decision for the next meeting? And so we're good, we just have to do the decision like we did for the first item on the agenda. And so this will be on the agenda for July 13th.
Okay, so we come back July 13th.
About July 13th, Dave, you can have it by then, right? All right. And the only other thing on here is there's a map note that has to be added. Can you send her the standard map note? So there's a map note that has to be added here, that we put a standard lot line improvement map note that needs to go with these other map notes. Mendenback and Agers is familiar with that note,
Okay,
so Stacy will send it to you, and you just need to get a hold of them and have them added to the map.
it's right here.
It's not the,
Okay, sure.
make sure that's the exact. Hang on, we may have it.
Yeah, well,
Yes. Okay. You
okay,
did, that's good.
it's on.
I didn't see it.
Okay, thank you.
So Dave Church will write up the decision. We'll have it for July 13th, and it's just a matter of board voting on it, and it'll be done. All right, so we'll see you on the 13th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Check the agenda for what probably first or second. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is Pine Grove. Better known as Maritime.
Start calling.
Go ahead.
It's a bone of my contention, but we should stop calling it Pine Grove. Because Pine Grove does not exist, so we should call it by the name of.
Okay, so it's here on the I code of Pine Grove.
I understand, but
It's
it can be
MCRT.
confusing to people.
And in parentheses, we should put Route Tom,
Correct,
all right, instead of Pine Grove.
correct. Especially for people that may be new to the area, they may not be aware.
Okay. Very good, so,
We should use the name that the applicant applied.
The
Right.
applicants applied with MCRT
Well, then that's the name of that, whatever name is on the application.
is what's on the
Yeah.
that we keep
application.
referring to. But
All right, so what we have now is a public hearing on well, public input on the scoping document, what's called the scoping. document. So I want to describe the process that we're in with seeker with this project. For those, the board has been intimately involved in this for at least a year, if not more, year and a half, since January of last year. But for the public and to remind us all on the board, I just want to go through what we're doing here. We had made a determination that the project, we should handle the project under the seeker, what's called positive declaration process. And that's because as this board went through a number of steps to evaluate the information that had been provided to us, the board's feeling with it, that was that there was a significant or could be significant adverse effects on the environment. And so the steps that we went through is something called a part two, where we seeker part two, where we do that evaluation. Then there's something called a part three, where we take the items from the part two that we determined, where we determine it could be significant adverse effects. And in the part three, you describe what those effects could be in great detail. We did that. And then as a result of that, we created what was called a pause declaration document. This was all done earlier in this year. February 9th was actually the date when we did the part two. And then in March and April, we went through the part three and the pause deck. In any case, on April 27th, we did declare that we would be doing a pause deck for this project by the name of MCRT. So one of the first steps is to do a scoping document, because eventually at the end of the process, we need what's called an environmental impact statement, a final environmental impact statement that the board can consider and decide how the applicant is going to be required to mitigate whatever the environmental impacts are. So the end result will be a final environmental impact statement. To get there, there's a number of steps to get to that place. The first is in this case, we asked the applicant to do a draft scoping document. And the scoping document is what the word scope suggests, to give a scope of the work that you think you're going to have to do, because a lot of this work is done by the applicant, in order to describe how are you going to overcome the impacts that we came up with, the possible impacts that we came up with in the part three and in our pause deck declaration. So they did a scoping document. We gave them a date in which they had to get it to us. They got it to us on May 29th, which was a Friday. It was after business hours. So we're declaring June 1st to be the date of delivery of the draft scoping document. The board then has 60 days from the production of that draft scoping document, 60 days to come up with a final scoping document. And in the regulations, the seeker regulations, it suggests, it doesn't require a public hearing, but it suggests that the board should use a variety of methods, and it mentions public hearing, commentary period, separate meetings, whatever. It mentions the types of things that should occur in order for the board to get public input. This board chose to do a public hearing in order to get input on the draft scope so that we could prepare the final scope. So tonight is the night in which we're going to be looking for comments from the public on this draft scope, a copy of which is on the back there, but also a copy had been provided both in the public notice as well as on the town's what's called a Muni Collab system, the system that carries all the documents. So that was published there some weeks ago. So tonight will be that scoping comments on the scoping draft scoping document. We'll be putting together a final scoping document. We have a deadline of July 30th to get that done. When that's done, then it's a matter for the applicant to go off and do the draft environmental impact statement. So you have a draft scoping document, final scoping document, then a draft environmental impact statement, and a final environmental impact statement. So the applicant is going to do the draft environmental impact statement, which covers everything that we said they have to cover in the scoping document. The scoping document they produced was 8 pages long, 9 pages long. Whatever it is that we come up with, they'll have to follow that outline and provide us with detailed information. And that will be the draft environmental impact statement. And there are a series of steps there where the board is encouraged to ask for public input on that document. And then we go forward and do the final environmental impact statement. And from there, the project is still not near to completion. From there, we decide whether or not the ways in which the applicant has identified the mitigation, whether it's satisfactory to the board. If it is, fine, we go forward. We still have to do site plan. Site plan is actually dealing with the site, the positioning of the buildings and whatever else needs to be dealt with. If we decide that that draft environmental impact statement is not sufficient, well, then they will have to make adjustments to that. And we define those in the final environmental impact statement. So I think from a layman's point of view, that pretty much summarizes my understanding of the process. There are some people who have actually done these things in the past, Jennifer and Helena, and we have Dave Gordon, our attorney, who is somewhat expert in seeker. So I just wanted to give you an overview, and I did want to mention a couple of things that a couple of comments from the public, and we've gotten quite a few already. A couple of comments have suggested that under seeker requires for these scoping sessions, as well as the environmental impact sessions, requires public hearings. That's not true. And so there's no requirement for public hearings. There's a requirement for public input, and the manner in which the public input is done is determined by this planning board. There are required dates by which certain things, or timeframes by which certain things have to be done. And in this case, it was 60 days to get the final scoping document done. So I just want to mention that, and that I'm sure that'll come up a number of times. So we're going to have the public hearing, public scoping document, I guess is a document, scoping session rather, is probably a better way of putting it. And so if anybody wants to comment, there is a sign-in sheet, Stacy.
Yeah.
There's a sign-in sheet there. I'd like you to sign that. If not, you know, when we go through the names that are on the sign-in sheet, when we're finished with that, if anybody else wants to comment, we'll entertain those comments. I'm going to limit the comments to 5 minutes per person. All right. You can submit as long a document as you want, written comments as you want, and I will be discussing with the board whether or not we're going to extend the written commentary period after this public scoping session, but that'll be the board's decision. So when we're finished with all the comments from the public, the board may have some comments. They may want to discuss some of those, and then we'll decide whether or not we're going to extend and have a written commentary period of some sort. So we will see. So the rules of the road are, we're not here to provide information, the board. We're here to listen to the public based upon their review of the documents that were made available on the public systems. And again, I'm going to limit the comments to 5 minutes. If you need another few seconds or half a minute, whatever, I'm not going to be irascible about it, but 5 minutes, I think you should be able to cover what it is you want to say. And then commentary, written commentary, that's fine of whatever length you choose. So Dave, did I cover the process in a nutshell, both scoping as well as?
I just want to make one other point for the public. This is not the last opportunity to comment on this project. As the chair mentioned, when we get to the draft environmental impact statement phase, there will be public comment on the DEIS, which will really have the analysis in it. So don't feel you need to comment at this point if you don't have anything particular to say about the scope. It really is for the purpose of letting the board specify the scope. So this process will continue, and EIS is a pretty substantial process. It's something the board and most boards around here don't do very often. It's a really in-depth look. The public will have plenty of opportunities to be involved. So just that makes it easier for tonight and hopefully.
And if the public would just excuse me for 1 minute. Yeah.
You, it's probably courtesy, yeah.
Okay. So I think what we're gonna do, the applicant had been told that we should move along very quickly to get to the scoping session. And it was suggested they didn't have to get here till 7:15. Obviously, if you were here for the last half hour, we moved very quickly through the first 3 items on the agenda. And it's not yet 7:15, the applicant's not here. So I'm gonna defer opening up the scoping session for the public until the applicant gets here, and I anticipate they'll be here in 5 or 10 minutes. So you will get a pass. We're still on YouTube, so no soccer cheering, no Norwegian rowing. But we're gonna wait 10 or 15 minutes, so we're gonna take a break until the applicant gets here. Okay?
I
Take a break.
appreciate your overview of the process, but as far as like the timeline for for you to do the final scoping and for them to respond, what's the time frame you're looking at for this process?
For us to do the final scoping document, to get that done. We haven't until July 30th to get the scoping document done. There are timeframes around the draft environmental impact statement and the final environmental impact statement. So I don't want to go there until we get the final scoping document done. Everything will be noticed in the newspaper. I mean, unless Dave, you want to go into the timeframes, or Dave Church. But it's lengthy, and at each stage, if what the applicant, or the draft stages, if the applicant delivers something that we're not satisfied with, they have to go back and redo it. At each stage that we have a public hearing, or whatever forum that we have for public input, we record all of the public's comments. Generally by a stenographer, we'll see. It just has to be recorded verbatim. Could be done through YouTube as well. We record all these meetings. But all of those comments from the public need to be aggregated under similar subjects and then responded to by the applicant and or the board, depending upon the nature of the comments. So there's a lot that goes into it. So the only time frame that I'm willing at this point or able to give you is the deadline for the final scoping session, which is July 30th, which is 60 days from the date in which they gave us the draft. And that's defined by the seeker regulations.
I didn't mean to suggest we wait around 20 minutes for him to come. I thought we'd move on to Verizon, but I don't think it's appropriate to hold up. Well, we don't know when they're gonna get here. I thought we'd just move to Verizon first, but
Well, Verizon is gonna be quite a lengthy
I understand.
process.
But if that's the choice, I would move forward with the scoping session. And I mean, there'll be a record that they'll be able
Okay.
to see and respond to, but I don't think it's
All right.
appropriate for us to all sit around.
Does the board want to,
I would rather wait.
You want to
you'd rather wait? Okay,
And now let's get to see yesterday's white.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Just someone's phone. It was a phone. I thought we're taking a break till the applicant shows up as we should.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Was that for
Taking a
me?
break till the applicant shows up, that's the right thing to do, but I'm not sure what you guys decided. The attorney said one thing, you said one thing, she said another. I think everyone here would like to know.
What we're gonna do is wait for the applicant.
Correct.
Okay. And my bad thinking that we,
So you'll hold back order, I guess.
I think it'd be fine either way. I mean, I think the applicant should be here.
Well, you
but-
said thanks, and that's why the 10 minutes.
Next question, since we're waiting today. What, can you talk about a procedural thing about our comments? So what is the most effective way for us as a whole? So I have comments on the draft scope. And I sent some preliminary comments earlier. What's the best way for us to submit our comments for so we can put it all in place and get
Oh,
that.
the
We're
last-
in a timeline right
The
now.
last time that we did this, I mean, as soon as possible, right, we only have till July 30th to get it done, so I'd like to get the board's comments as soon as possible. But I think the way in which we did it once before, we used a tracking sheet.
You want us to put our comments in there? That's,
Did that work out?
What if I put it in SharePoint? And everybody sent me their comments or just edit it in SharePoint?
Okay.
whatever.
Because
works
everybody
best.
has access. It's essentially like Google Docs where everybody can edit
I had
it.
trouble logging, it, but I'll try it.
Yeah, I'll try.
Or
that.
you can send them to me and I can make the edits.
Do what I could do, if I could put my comments. I'm gonna try to get on SharePoint, if I can't for some reason, I can put them in and you can just copy paste them
Yeah,
into the Excel spreadsheet.
I might be able to help you because I had gone to it.
Because I have a professional and it. wants
That's
to-
what, so you need to log in under different.
No, but it's giving me more time. Anyway, I think it's because I was on the wrong, here, I'll try it. Okay, that's fine. I did a review, so I have
Yeah, comments.
most of my comments and I'll mention them when we get to that later, so.
All right. And for those members of the public who have sent us written comments, and there were quite a few. Today or yesterday, we got 20 of them, some of them quite lengthy. So most of those have been added to what's called Muni Collab, the tracking system or the publicly available system. They're under this project in the section called public comments. The board has gotten them all, so they're there. We're not likely to discuss them tonight, but the next meeting, July 13th, we will discuss those in detail. So we did get a number of comments. Close to 20.
You know, it might be helpful, not advocating Stacy or Dave, but compiling a spreadsheet on the various issues. Water, septic, etc., and then lumping, you know, as we review comment letters, who's commenting on what. That way we can track how many of the public comments, how many are having to do with the septic, how many is with the hydro reports, et cetera, and then we can do a deeper dive.
That's a good point.
Just.
Yeah, I think the comment tracking.
That's how the DEC's done it in the past. Get hundreds of comments.
Well, who's drafting the final code?
We're looking at them.
Oh, you are?
You and me.
Oh. Well,
I'd like to review that.
then I presume we have some preference here.
Yes,
I,
I'm all ears as to how.
SharePoint is not worked for me. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
think-
what's the problem.
Alright.
It won't load up right. I've tried different pieces of equipment.
All right, so we'll,
But I don't care, whatever works for you all.
all right,
Before we
I
get
was
to writing
more-
the letter,
I
let's
was
start
more-
compiling comments in the various
Right.
areas of concern. And then you can read out what's substantive, what is not, what. And then you can drill down.
Specifically on this.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I don't think.
we're holding the meeting for you because I told you 7:15, so have a seat. Are the applicants, Moshi and company coming?
They'll be here, but we have enough of our team to start.
Okay, so why don't your team, if you need another chair, there's plenty of chairs out there. Why don't your team queue up? I had told you 7:15, so we wanted to wait till you got here.
Tracking.
Jeff, introduce your team again, so the board knows.
Well, we got a new member, team, Meg Holden is with the
Excuse
firm.
me. I can't hear you. Could you please introduce?
Meg Holden is with the firm of C. Paget and Rizel from New York City. And this is Mark Millspa from Sterling Engineering.
Do you mind describing
Yeah.
what the new attorney's role is?
She's a special, well,
We do environmental reviews, so we were brought on to advise specifically on the environmental issues.
So you'll be honchoing what, the FEIS, or you're just here to advise the applicant on the various environmental steps?
Yeah, the FEIS and other environmental issues, we just sort of provide support for the environmental review process.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. All right, so I, for the applicants, I explained to the public, the process that we're looking for comments on the draft scoping document. And, Hans, as long as you're up, would you mind getting the sign-in sheet? That's what happens when you get up. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so we'll get started. Reminder, please address the board, not the applicant, and 5 minutes per person. First on the list is Maren Lindstrom.
Isn't that funny? Better be personal list. So as you know, we submitted a document from our lawyer earlier, which goes into some issues that we have with the draft scoping document and the likeness thereof. I'm going to read in 5 minutes a summary of what was submitted. I also have a submission of my own that I did not know this was the last day to do it, so I brought it in physical copy because I was not sure if we were able to send something online. I am providing this statement together with a comment letter that was submitted earlier by our attorney, Crystal Peck. We are not here to oppose the board's process. We support it. In April, this board issued a pause depth and found this project could cause real significant impacts on our community, the groundwater, septic, historic places, and our roads. This is why an environmental impact statement is being requested. Our concern is simple. The draft scoping document, the roadmap that decides what the study will actually examine, does not match the findings that this board is already made in the pause deck. And part 3 of the thief. In several places is narrower than the board's findings. In others, it is flatly contradictory to these findings. It is not corrected. The study could be written in a way that avoids the very impacts that caused this board to require an EIS in the first place. We ask the board cordially to revise the draft scope before it is finalized. 1. The no increase premise. The draft scope is built on a claim that there will be no increase in population, water use, or traffic. That premise is simply not accurate, and this board has already said so. The record shows the proposed population of 770 people, 550 campers, plus 220 staff and family. The historic occupancy reflects in the camp's existing wastewater permit was 528. This is a substantial increase. The board has already rejected both the no increase claim and the applicant's low water use estimate as not credible. A study that starts from no increase is a study designated to find no impact. The final scope should state the actual proposed population upfront, and every analysis should be built on the real numbers. 2. Groundwater, our drinking water supply. This property sits in the aquifer protection zone. Neighbors have already reported that their private wells are not producing enough water. The board flagged additional water withdrawals with significant impact. The draft scope promises a water study, but it does not commit to study the real demand of 770 people. It fails to acknowledge the neighbors' well problems entirely. We asked the study base water demand project projections on the full 770 person occupancy using the town's engineers' estimated GPD usage, not the applicant's low figure. Include a proper pump test that follows DEC guidelines and maps existing wells in the area. We also asked that the final scope directly addresses the documented complaints that nearby wells are running dry and that measure this project's added effect on these wells and on the aquifer. 3. Wastewater, septic capacity. This is one of our most serious concerns. The projected wastewater flows from this project range from roughly 38,500 to over 69,000 gallons a day. The permitted septic capacity is about 27,500 gallons a day. That means this project could generate 2 to 3 times what the system is permitted to handle. There's a second problem. The septic system is not one large system. It is many separate tanks and fields, and one of them can be overloaded on its own. Neighbors supposedly are already reporting gray water effluents this summer from both camps. We asked that the final scope require the applicant give a clear, quantified comparison of projected flows against the permitted limit stated as daily overcapacity number. Examine each separate septic field individually, not as one lumped together total. Evaluate whether a new or modified wastewater permit and an expanded system would be required, and the effect on groundwater quality if the current system is simply kept. 4. Aesthetic and historic resources. The proposed building is roughly 236 feet wide, quite wide, sitting on a 14-foot embankment in a rural setting. The board directed that the review consider alternative sizes, layouts, and locations to reduce the visual impact. There's also a historic cemetery on the property, and the board found that protecting it is essential. Yet, the draft scope acknowledges the cemetery without committing to protect it, and it states that an archaeological survey is not proposed. The property also sits next to the Shoemaker Stonehouse, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. We ask that the study include a field delineation of the cemetery with real protection measures, reconsider the decision to skip the archaeological survey, and measure the building's scale against the surrounding rural character. Don't worry, there's only 6. We're doing 5.
I didn't hear that last part, so.
I said, don't worry, I'm getting there.
Oh.
And there are only 5, I'm gonna make my 5 minutes. Number 5, transportation and traffic. The board found the traffic here represents a significant increase over prior use. But the draft scope frames its traffic study around that same no increase premise. Using current traffic as the baseline, that understates the real picture. We asked the traffic study state its occupancy and trip assumptions openly and reconcile them with the board's findings of a significant increase. Look at real peak conditions, camper changeover days, bus and truck movements, and traffic between this camp and the applicant's second camp in town. Account for the synagogue and the plans that creates predictable peaks, such as Thursday evenings and Fridays before sundown. Examine whether Cherrytown Road can safely handle two-way bus traffic and address sightlines at the intersections. 6 is alternatives and other gaps. The board specifically directed a review of alternative locations for the facility. The draft scope studies alternative sizes for water systems, but it leaves out alternative locations entirely. That gap should be filled. This gap should be filled as the planning board is giving the permit to the land. And gaps do not address the multiplicity of intensified uses on this land. For example, an alternative plan to study. Repurpose the quite large entry reception bar, drain the indoor pool. Repurpose, redesign, and repurpose unused tennis courts, outdoor pool, recreational structures, and show how the existing dining facility could serve the population. None of that has been done. Finally, the study should include an analysis of lighting impact on Cherrytown, Sampsonville, and the entire community because they're on top of a hill and you can see it everywhere. And the cumulative impact analysis considers the project together with other projects in the area and the inherent expansion of this project over time. In closing, to sum up, the draft scope identifies the right topics, but it does not yet commit to studying the impacts this board already found significant, and in places it relies on a no increase assumption that contradicts the board's own findings. We respectfully ask the board to revise the draft scoping document before it is finalized, so the environmental study fully examines and discloses every significant impact identified in the POS deck. We have submitted these comments in greater detail in writing and would welcome the chance to answer your questions. Thank you.
Can we have a copy of that, Maren?
Yeah, you already have the big draft.
So that's a good summary.
And the summary, I'll
You'll
send
send
it to her all together.
Okay, right, thank you. Clarina Bizzola.
I just wanna really thank you for everything you, I wanna look at her. I really wanna thank you for everything what you said and for your amazing work, and you're really speaking for everybody. I just, I'm not very informed technically about this. I've just seen communities like that grow in other areas. Architecturally and visually, in my personal aesthetics, I find it very offensive because it is done with very little sensitivity to the visual elements of a regular rural community. It's just like, I've seen it on the picture that's coming. It looks like everything that we see in like Monroe and those areas, and I'm really sad about this. And of course, the environmental impact, the sewer, the water use, the light pollution, the noise pollution, the traffic. I'm extremely worried about it, and I'm just getting up. I put my name on the list, even though I didn't really know exactly what to say. I just want to speak up because I feel like we should all speak up.
Thank you. You did fine. John Moore,
Oh, hey, what is her name, please?
Excuse me,
her name is Clarina Pizzola.
can you repeat your name?
Clarina Bezzola, CLARINA,
Okay.
BECCOLA. I'm from Switzerland.
That's it?
I heard it.
Oh,
your name.
Okay,
You should talk.
thank you. John Moore?
Yes, my concern is. They had a problem with the other camp above on 170 with a sewer problem. What's gonna happen from stopping it again? They're already contaminated wells and farmland before. What's the town board gonna do to make sure it doesn't ever happen again? Cause this is a farm community, this isn't a New York City area. This is a rural area that we choose to live in as retired people that have farms. I got an orchard, I have a pond that feeds my orchard the water it needs. If they contaminate my pond, I lose my life. That's all I got to say, and all the farmers around here. So let's all really think about this. And if Rock Top, if they bought it, did they ever look into the zoning laws first before they bought it, or did they just assume that they were gonna buy this and do something like this to get us to do what they want? That's what I got to say.
Thank you, John. Joan Ewing?
Can I sit down still? Can I stay seated?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I wrote you an email that I got. One of them requesting that the public comment period stay open. I'm not sure how it fully works, whether the public comment period ends when the subject ends and then opens again when a new subject comes up. But I'm gathering we're going to be getting a lot of new information and are going to need time to process and understand that information and then formulate questions and comments. So I'm hoping that we have that opportunity in ongoing. So that was one of the points. Another second point was I'm confused about the proposed size of the building because we've come to a number of meetings. I see the 39,000 square feet figure on the agenda, and I've seen 29,000 square feet discussed at times. So I'm confused as to what actual size is on the table right now. And the third point, I believe Mr. Kaplan spoke last time when we were here. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was a request to not have a hydrological study done during the time camp was in session because it would be disturbing. I can understand that, but I'm wondering if there's any way to measure the use of water, to measure the runoff, to measure the sewage and find an existing condition without doing it when it is in session. And that's the real, that's where you can make real measurements and I'm hoping and I believe it can be done in a respectful way. But that was my third point, that it needs to be done when the camp is actually in use in order to get any kind of accuracy
as to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, the hydrogeologic study has come up twice. The one that was defined in the drafts, originally by the applicant as part of the draft scope. There's a recommendation from our engineer dated the June 15th. That tells them exactly what we want done, and it's different from what they were proposing, so. And it's much more complete. It involves continual testing. When they do it, I don't remember what was recommended. Clearly, to do it before the camp starts isn't a great idea, but during the camp, if they can do it, great, but the length of it, what they have to show us, whether or not there's impacts on surrounding neighbors, if the neighbors agree to have their wells monitored, they need to do that. So there were a whole host of things in that letter, and it's on the town's website called Muni Collab. It was dated June 15th. So without getting into a lot of detail, because I want to get to all the other folks, the board will talk about this. But I just want to reassure the two people who mentioned the hydrogeologic study that we sort of rejected what they came up with and told them, no, this is the way you have to do it. And we'll, when we do the final, we will be telling them exactly what we want. Okay.
I'd like to make a comment that, to be clear, even though we have the letter from Greg, from our engineer, et cetera, we don't really know yet what we're putting in that scoping document. Things can
That's
change.
correct. That's correct.
So just to let
So-
them know.
I wanted to alert them.
Yeah.
The point of saying it was alert them. It was written by the
I mean,
applicant
they can see
engineer.
that, but it
Hang
could
on.
change.
It's different from what we're recommending, and it may be different again after we go through it with Craig, so. Member Duda is correct. Mary Ellen Moynihan,
Well, evening. So again, I was a little bit unclear on that scope, what this, that's what we meant. But in reading it, I guess I was a little bit surprised that not really, their mitigation measures, they seem to say, well, we decreased the square footage of our building by 11%. That should mitigate several of these problems. Well, big is big, and it's still big. And, I don't really think they put much thought into their mitigation measures noted in their document at all. It's more, well, if it's necessary, we'll mitigate. We should be thoughtful ahead of time. And, try and think about what problems could come up rather than just say, well, if it happened, maybe we'll do something. And then my other concern is whether the scope is directed at their providing meals now, but they keep listing, yes, but we have future developments planned. And what does that mean? And is the environmental impact based on what they plan to do with this building in the future? Or is it, we in for a big surprise later that we can't come back to? And that's where I've had some feedback from you guys. No, and so that concerns me a lot. It's like, what are we asking for? Something that's just gonna be addressing what they're doing for the first 6 months of this project? And then for the next 10 years, it's anything goes? I just don't know. Thank you.
thank you. Ivan Goodman,
Thank you to the board for giving us the opportunity to comment. I just want to bring up the ACT data statement again. It's been a long time since it's been discussed. The applicant had indicated that there were no active farms within 500 feet of the application, which is incorrect. There are 3 directly adjacent, my farm, Burright Farm, and the Whiteman Farm, and a 4th in between the camps, the Gray Farm. So these are all active farms. I just want a lot being discussed in the environmental impact statement, and I just want to make sure that this is remaining in the conversation considered by the board and the applicant. Also in the traffic study, all 4 of these farms operate slow moving farm equipment on this road, and it's a safety concern, especially when camp is in session with the buses and slow moving farm equipment. So just want to keep that in the consciousness of the board Want to really appreciate the board for taking an environmental approach to this, as all of these concerns affect the viability of farmland immediately adjacent to this application, so thank you.
Could you just repeat those 4 farms again so I can write it down?
Yeah.
Gray Farm,
Gray, Courtright,
Courtright.
Gray is farmed by,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Gray,
Gray,
Courtright.
Courtright, Whiteman, and
Thank you. White.
Whiteman Orchards.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mr. Goodman. Mike Baden?
Thank you to the board for having us tonight. First, I want to say thank you as many of you know, but in case you don't know. I've been involved in this community in planning and zoning since 2003, when I came to a meeting just like this and asked a question. So I was involved in the comp plan, I was involved in the 2008 zoning code. I was involved in the most recent zoning code and probably every other committee in between. With that being said, I'm very happy to see that this board has put a positive declaration on this project. It is indeed one of the largest projects in this community that I can recall in my 20-some years of being involved. And I think the scope of it deserves that. That being said, in talking about the scoping, I would ask that in conformity with community plans, that the board ask the applicant to review the special use review criteria of 140-55. There's 6 points. I won't go into each of them independently, but I believe each of them is pertinent and should be answered by the applicant in the scoping. The applicant should, and the board should use that criteria to thoroughly answer, does this project satisfy these criteria, or does this project not satisfy the criteria? I would ask that the board also ask for any mitigation measures that could be proposed to satisfy for the ones that are not answered as satisfactory. I also would ask that the board consider, they have reduced the size, but let's face it, we are still dealing with almost 40,000 square foot building. To answer the question before, it's a 2-story building, which is 19,500 times 2 stories, which is worth a 39,000.
Well, spacious, no?
So, I would ask that the board consider if this is simply too large and has too many impacts on the neighborhood. I'd ask for conformity with the comprehensive plan. A few points that I've identified. Development, these are straight from the comp plan. Development complements and strengthens Rochester's small town quality and character. These are all ones I think they should answer. Growth occurs in a way that minimizes loss of open spaces or scenic views. Growth can take place without compromising the quantity and quality of drinking water available to all town residents. Strike a balance so that growth can take place in a way that protects the environmental resources we all need to live. And direct large-scale or intensive development to areas with adequate infrastructure. I'd also like to talk a little about the zoning code. This property predates zoning. It was a resort for many years as the Pine Grove. It was in 2008, it was put in the AR3 agricultural district, primarily because the Pine Grove, being a dude ranch, very agriculturally oriented, they were haying many of their fields, they had trails throughout their property. Obviously, the horsemanship, all very agricultural. It was a resort. Resorts were allowed in that zoning district. With the recent zoning change, the portion of this property that was AR3 has now been changed to R5. That was from the board in the reaction to this is no longer being used as an agricultural property. The remaining was left in agriculture because it remains in the agricultural district, meaning the state ag district. It is not being used, to my knowledge, in any way. It's simply growing and just continuing to grow. It's not being hayed. There's no agricultural use. but it certainly could be put back into agricultural use. I'd also talk. With that former use, there was minimal truck traffic, just deliveries of food, very small. The number of people there was relatively small at most times. It peaked in the summer, of course, but it was manageable, minimal traffic. Since the change, there is considerably more traffic. There is bus traffic. Almost everybody, to my visual, is noticing that they arrive by bus. It's not private cars. And I'd also ask that the board really needs to decide. And I've heard it mentioned by the applicant as 3 different uses. Is it a resort? Is it a camp? Is it a place of worship? It could potentially be all 3, and 2 of those are additional accessory uses. But that it really needs to be defined. I know this board has no oversight over the determination of use, but perhaps the ZBA could be sought for a review of the definitions. Your attorney can tell you whether that's appropriate or not, to determine what is accessory, what is not accessory, how this can be reviewed. I also wanted to point out the 140-20 general commercial and industrial standards. I particularly would call attention to letter C, items 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14. I won't go into all of them, but I do want to point out this code has a restriction. Admittedly, it is on retail space, but I want to read this. We're allowed in a zoning district, except the industrial zoning district, any individual freestanding commercial building or any group of attached commercial buildings' total footprint shall not exceed an area of 10,000 square feet. And then it says of retail space. I will tell you that was put in the code to prevent big box stores. But the intent of that was to prevent large buildings. In hindsight, should we have put the of retail space? Maybe not. We were talking about big box stores. This type of size building, not in a warehouse or retail situation, was never anticipated by the code. I'd also like to talk about the board has the capability of increasing buffers between residential and commercial. I would ask you to look into that. Lighting is a significant issue, remains a significant issue, partially because you don't need a building permit in the town of Rochester to put up outdoor lights. They were within their right, but they don't meet the code criteria. Perhaps a site plan should have been done. I believe some of the signs are not compatible with the code. Transportation, when you're looking at transportation, I'd also ask that you look at pedestrian transportation. Just today, I passed 14 people walking between the camp and the girls' camp.
Mike, you're way over the 5 minutes. Are you gonna wrap up soon?
Yeah, I am proposing possible alternate site location. That's in the map, and thank you again for your time. I'll submit.
You're gonna leave that with us, Mike?
Yeah, I am.
We need electronic to this. When you shouldn't be done, just to submit the best of it and make it work.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Michael Rubin.
I just want to thank all of you. I've been following this and noticing here at meetings. I continue to be really impressed by your service and how engaged you are with all these issues. Confidence you guys are going to do the right thing. I wanted to endorse both what Mike's saying and Maren, particularly Maren's letter from Maren's lawyer that was, I believe, went into being collab today, is very detailed in terms of many different points about how the scoping document should be modified, and I really hope you'll take a serious look at the recommendations therein. And I wanted to stand today to just talk specifically about segmentation, and I wanted to read first of all from Engineer Bollner's letter of April 27th. He thought in the middle of his letter to put one passage in bold, which says, in summary, the applicant needs to prepare an application for a change in use from 504 campers to 24 staff. The proposed use that is presumed to be 500 campers and 215 staff and families. The assertion that the applicant's site changes that were not discovered are by default approved is not how zoning works. And I think that's very much at the crux of this issue here. There's been lots of talk in the board about wastewater and water use and the gallons per day that are acceptable based on summer camps versus school versus different types of use. But what we've seen here is the segmentation of things sort of incrementally creeping in. So we're not just talking about this one building, but in fact, the changes that have happened since Rob Top have become owners of the former Drew Ranch. And so I really encourage you to consider that. And what's really unique here also is we have sort of double segmentations. We have segmentation that way in terms of over time, and things like the Department of Health's permit mentions a bathhouse, yet on the site plan that's been submitted for, before the board for this project, there's no listing, but there's a playhouse, but there's no bathhouse listed. So that clearly is a significant water impact. I have no idea where that is, or if the planning board knows where that is, or what's being discussed there. So there's that segmentation, but then, as Mike was pointing out, they also hold a permit to operate as a hotel. So when they come before you, as they did in the last meeting, and try and reassure the board that their water use will be minimal because they're going to be not, people will be bringing their own linens and not changing their linens for 3 weeks and not using utensils that are, all the utensils and plates are going to be disposable, so they won't need to be washed. Like simultaneously, while they have the permit to run this place as a hotel is yet another form of segmentation that I really encourage the board to look at and consider when determining things like the rates of water use and impact on the septic. You really have to, as Maren pointed out, what you decide here and what is built will run with the land. It's not just run with this particular operator, but will run with the land. So everybody coming in, inheriting this and wanting to run it as a hotel will indeed not be using, we can rely on them not to use disposable cutlery and plates, and they'll be washing linens, and they'll be using the facilities as anybody who runs a hotel or a summer camp, whatever they're doing, in a way that's reasonable, that far exceeds the use that the applicant will think it's positive that they will have. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for all your work. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Rubin, do you have anything you want to submit to us tonight, or have you done it before?
I've done it many times before.
I remember that.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing if I may, which is the one place that I thought was covered a little lightly in the things that I've seen is light. I know that the whole issue of dark sky is one thing, but even beyond dark sky, which my understanding is about exterior lighting. The structure that's there right now has the illuminated sign, which I don't know if it's technically covered in dark sky, but also large windows with lights left blazing 24/7, 365 days a year. It can be seen, especially now, if you drive by, it's with foliage on the trees, it's less of an impact, but in the winter season where there's not leaves on the trees, it is a tremendous amount of impact on the neighbor. I showed photos last time, I don't know, prior time here about the one, so I would urge you to place on some of those as well.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for the list. Is there anybody else who wants to speak to this in the context of the, say that again?
When the lighting happens and they create more energy, our electric bills go up because they're using more energy than us. Remember that when you think about that. Go up to the electric companies.
Anybody else have any?
The more electricity they waste, the more we pay.
Anybody else have any comments on this project? Yes, sir. Can I have your name?
Paul Courtwright. I have the farm property that borders directly that this site. And
You were the property that had the helicopter incident, right?
yeah, one of the couple, yes. But I noticed on their site plan, they have a surveyed boundary delineating their property from the neighbors. In the back of that property, there used to be a ball field, there's still a big bouncy pillow pad thing there. But they also have, and it's all enclosed with chain link fence. There is a narrow paved path around that field. And when you look at their site plan, their boundary shows that that fence and that path go onto my property. So I was trying to find the indicated iron pipes found, which are the corners of the property. Earlier this spring, I was unable to find them. But I did find a drilled well that may very well be on my property, and it's not my well.
And you didn't drill it?
What's that?
You didn't drill it?
I did not drill. I was kind of surprised to find it there.
Is it recently drilled?
It doesn't appear to be.
It
looks
does or
like-
does not?
Does not.
Does
Okay,
not.
thank you.
But it just. So my concern is with this hydrologic, with this. water study-
Hydrogeologic study.
If, I think I saw the letter from the town engineer requesting. Mapping of their wells and what wells they're using and what wells they're gonna be testing. And so I just want the board to be aware of the possibility that this well may actually be on my property and therefore should not be considered a water source for their usage, because I definitely did not permit that, though I haven't owned the property forever, but I'm not aware of any water rights extended to the old Pine Grove or whoever put that well in.
So I don't want to go into it tonight, but if you could catch our secretary the next couple of days. I'd like to meet you in the planning board office and go over the detailed maps and show me where you're talking about.
Okay,
All
but
right.
it doesn't show up on any of their maps. When you look at the two things that made it key to me is their boundary line is pretty straight from the old cemetery out back towards their the old ball field. And in the aerial view that they show, which is the picture of the entire area, there is also an area that was excavated at one time to be used as a skating rink for one of the hotels, one of the Pine Grove owners. And that clearly showed, excuse me, it shows to be on my property. And this well I found was rather close to that on their side of that skating rink. So
in any case, if you want to meet just to go over some maps and we can wander around in the field just to locate where you're talking about.
okay.
All right. You have a map of your property? That could be a problem then. All right, so we'll talk. Anything else, Mr. Courtwright?
That's it.
All right, thanks. Anybody else want to speak on this? On this matter? Mike?
I just wanted to ask a procedural question. On Munical Ave, there's one section for public comments. Are the scoping comments being segregated in any way? Or are they being considered different than any of the other comments?
So far, we're putting them all into the public comment section. And that works for us now.
Okay. Thank you.
And if there's a change, it'll be obvious, I hope.
I had another question.
Go ahead.
We had requested an extension of the time.
Myron, talk up, I can't hear you.
Sorry, we had requested an extension of the time for public comment.
I'm gonna address that with the board when
Okay.
tonight is finished.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Okay, so for the board, there's no, I mean, if anybody from the board wants to make a comment or has some clarifying questions on things they heard, fine. But it wasn't my intention to get into a lot of details tonight on what we've heard. There's a lot of documents that we've gotten in the last few days. Very large one from Lauren and her attorney and some other people in the audience. Joan, we have yours and a number of others. So unless the board has some clarifying questions, what I'd like to do is just talk about our next steps. one of the next steps is to extend a commentary period for this draft scope to our next meeting, which would be July 13th. So that gives the public two more weeks to comment. But what I'd also like to do is to close the physical public hearing. But extend the written commentary period to the 13th. Why the 13th? It's our next meeting. And pretty much that whole meeting will be on Round Top is my intent. There's a few small things we need to get out of the way. And then from the 13th, the next Monday is the 20th, and the next Monday after that is the 27th. The final scoping document is due on the 30th. So the 13th to discuss a lot of these details. And then the writing of it during that period of time and the next 2 weeks, so that on the 20th, we have a draft final scope for the board to go through. I think it's important to continue to get public comments, but I don't want to do it in the context of a public hearing. I want to do it in the context of written comments to get by the 13th. That allows us to begin to digest what we have, what we continue to receive, and for Dave and I to begin to put together changes to the draft scope and begin to compose this thing. There's a lot of work and a limited period of time as defined by SEQA to get it done. So with the board's permission, I'm going to make the resolution to close the public hearings, to continue, hang on, I didn't finish, to continue the commentary period for 2 weeks. And to also, in the same breath, to have another meeting on July 27th, because currently we don't have a meeting on July 27th. So you can agree with part of that, some of that, modify it, but I'd like to make that motion. I'd like a second, and then we can discuss it.
Can I make a comment?
Why don't you second it first, and then we'll comment.
Well, it affects, I think, how people might.
All right, go ahead.
In my experience preparing EISs, the draft scope of work typically includes less detail on the specific methods than the actual environmental impact statement. So from my perspective, I've heard what was said here, and I generally agree with a lot of the sentiments, specifically with regard to water, septic, transportation. But my opinion is that the methodologies for these will be quite detailed, and I don't
Will be
think
quite
detailed and robust in terms of where my head is at. And I don't think, I would not want to try to get those methodologies done in 2 weeks. I would want a significant amount of time to review those methods, digest them, provide comments back before we finalize them. And where I'm going with all of this is that I don't know that the draft scope would include the level of detail that some people might be thinking, and I'd be curious to know what others are.
So are you arguing for or against continuing the public hearing, for or against the commentary period, for or against the meeting of the 27th?
I'm saying that I think we have to close it because we're on a timeline. What are the implications if we miss the 60 days?
What was that question?
The implications if we miss the 60-day window?
In general, I mean, I don't know, I'd have to look it up. That's. If you think you're gonna miss it, we should talk to the applicant about getting an extension.
Okay.
But otherwise,
Let's not.
that's what?
Let's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's up to the.
No, I
board.
mean, let's not miss the 60 days.
Yeah, with you.
Secondly,
I guess what I'm saying is that I'm okay with the draft, personally, I'm okay with the draft scope of work that maybe doesn't go into as much detail on the methods for how exactly we're gonna analyze what intersections, exactly what wells are gonna be monitored specifically, with the understanding that those details will be disclosed in the environmental impact statement.
I agree with you, but I think what's important is I heard a lot of broad, I'll call them strategic, not tactical, but strategic items that may have been missed by the applicant in their draft. Things that we have talked about that we have said we want to have in there. So it's those broad strategic things that we need to make sure are
Yes,
covered.
I agree.
So I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. And in order to accomplish that, I want to make sure that we have enough time to go through all of that. I look at that 60 days as being sacrosanct, and only with the permission and I'll defer to council to a point, but only with the permission of the applicant could we go beyond that 60 days.
So.
So there is a lot of work to do,
So I'd be curious to know what we,
and therefore I think we should extend the commentary period, but not the public hearing portion of it.
Can I make a comment to Jennifer? In my experience, in the scoping document, yes, we should be specific as to what we want, but we shouldn't be overly, you know, if you
Yeah.
are too specific in the scope, then you box yourself into a corner.
yes.
If we outline the methodology that we want to be used, with not naming wells, et cetera, during the review of the draft EIS, that can take months. I mean, I've been on
What could
project,
take much?
a review of the draft EIS, because we
Yes.
have to, we will have to review it, we'll have to review, see if it's complete, provides all the information.
Let's
that we
stick
have.
to the draft scoping and the
No,
final.
this is
scope.
going into the draft EIS, you get your scope. And once we have our finalized scope, then the applicant provides a draft EIS, the DEIS. And then after the submission of the DEIS, we read it, we see if whether or not it answers our questions, provides the data that we want. And then we meet, and I mean, that process can take a long time. And you have to make sure that any of the section, any data in one section meets the date, it agrees with the data in the other section. So I do agree with Jennifer, as far as we shouldn't be too over specified in the scope. There needs to be detail, but. And
We wanna hit
if
on the
we don't
strategic
get
issues.
that, pardon?
We want to hit on the strategic issues, the bigger issues.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
In the
We're still
scope.
yeah, well, no, let's say what Jennifer was saying before, she doesn't want too much detail to us in the scope to identify the wells
Okay.
that are going to be tested, because we still don't know that, and so we have how do I describe it?
I always like to start with a bigger box for plans, bigger sandbox.
Exactly.
And then as you do your analysis.
Correct.
Begin to refine that. Similarly, you can come across new information while you're conducting an analysis. That maybe.
All right, guys, I hear all this, I agree with it, but we have a resolution on the table.
Actually, you
The
don't.
simple,
There's
hang
no-
on, Dave. I have a resolution on the table. The resolution is simple, and if you don't want to, if we just want to can the resolution, I will. But the resolution is to ask to close the public hearing and to ask for more time to do written commentary. Because we have to get to redoing what they gave to us as a draft and create a final. That's going to take some time. If we allow another public hearing to hear comment, I don't know that we're going to hear any different comments than what we've heard already. We've got an enormous number of documents with a lot of detail. We all, in particular myself and the 2 days, have to go through that and begin to coalesce that and synthesize that and make sure everything's covered. That's not any small task. So I don't want to suck up selfishly my time and this guy's time, Dave's time. Not the wrong word, but I don't want to take time waiting for more public comment. And I don't think we're going to hear too much different. It'll be the same material, but different material than what we've heard tonight, and we've heard many nights on this project, or that we heard in the written comments. So I do want to, there might be something, so let's extend the period for the written comments for 2 weeks, so that we can get to the work of actually culling through their draft scope and doing a final scope. So that's why I made the motion, close the public hearing, but extend the written commentary period so we can we being staff and get our work done.
So if we agree that we can create a larger sandbox for our analysis, then I'm fine.
What's that larger sandbox? I'm
That
missing
means
something.
that the draft scope would not be so refined that we can't make material changes to the analysis later on.
Right.
So why don't you trust what Dave and I will do and present to this board on the 23rd or on the 13th or the 27th, or before then for sure. And if it's too whatever, you can make comments to it and change it. I can't guarantee how it's going to be written until we begin to write this thing or rewrite it. Okay. But as soon as it's rewritten, and I would hope that we can get it rewritten from the way it is now in about 2 weeks for the board to review it and for the public to see it. If we've missed something that the public may be aware of, that's why I want the written commentary here. So are we saying the same thing, or are we
Yes.
talking
Yes.
past each other?
We're saying.
But I do want to make one
Go
other
ahead,
point
Alina.
for the public, and this is in seeker.
Okay,
And it says all relevant issues should be raised before the issuance of a final written scope. Any agency or person raising issues after that time must provide to the lead agency and project sponsor a written statement that identifies the nature of the information, the importance and relevance. And the reason why the information was not identified during scoping and why it should be included at this stage. of the
so we do.
So I want the public to know that there is, even if after the public comment period has been closed, if something comes up that's substantive, there are provisions in seeker for it to be addressed.
I agree.
So it's in seeker.
Okay, so I have a motion. Does anybody? This is the board time, sorry.
Okay, so
Does the board want to second the motion, and then we can have more discussion? All right, so we have a second.
Just for clear, we're closing the public hearing tonight. We are accepting written comments until.
For 2 weeks, to the 13th of July. All right, check me on that. That's July 13th. That's our next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm asking, and we can do this later, but I'm also asking that we have another regular meeting on the 27th of July. Because we had canceled it for the, we need to have another, because there's so much to do. We okay with that? I'm not gonna call a vote or anything. Dave? You had some comments, and
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I'm glad you got a second. You call a vote, that's what we do, and to pass the motion, and so I understand the motion that we're cutting off the public hearing is ending tonight, comment period goes through the 13th, and we have a meeting on the 27th.
yes,
That's the motion,
that's the
right?
motion, right?
You seconded that, even though he added something afterwards.
No, I didn't add
We
it.
had the 27th meeting on the 27th.
I put that in there first, I didn't add it.
So now we do take a vote on it because that's the way.
Okay, we're at a second. Usually after a second, I ask if there's any
But
other comments. All right. I'll vote. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Anybody opposed?
No,
You're a no?
no,
Why do you know?
You're,
I think I have learned a lot. I understand the timelines. However, I learned a lot from the public today, which was new to me. So I think the public should have the right at this point to have a further opportunity to come.
and I hear what you're saying, and that's the reason for the additional written commentary period. You do realize the amount of work to put this all together.
Make the motion pass, he said.
I know, I just
He
want
said why he doesn't like it, that's fine.
to. So we have 4 yeses and 1 no and 2 abstentions. Thank you, Hans.
I just wanted to make one point that, first of all, I didn't understand the relationship of what you were originally, your concern to the motion, which was basically the timing of public comment, but I want to make another point, and I could be wrong about this, because I have not had a lot of EISs, just working in the area, we don't do that many of them. I don't think we can make decisions about how much detail to put in the scope in the abstract. If we have a broad scope that doesn't have details in it, it's an invitation to the applicant to address that issue as they see fit. And the question for the board should be, on every issue individually, how much, and I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, how much rope to give the applicant to make that determination? And if you think that there's an issue where the applicant and we are pretty much on the same page, that the views are aligned, you can give them, you don't have to worry about it. If there are issues where we're perhaps in the past at odds, and might even still be at odds, we may want to have some more specificity in terms of how we define the issue, because otherwise we might expect that the DEIS is not going to come back with an analysis that's helpful to us, and that would be a problem because the DEIS is a very important document. So I just want to throw that out there.
Well, one of my comments, we aren't got at my comments yet, but one of my comments is that I think we should receive the methods for every single analysis, and it should be approved by us as a board before they undertake the field work.
Well, as Lynn
that's
said,
outside
there's a
of-
tension between that and having some flexibility. I just want to point out I don't think these issues can be dealt with in the abstract. There may be certain issues where we think the applicant
agree.
will find, there may be other issues where we want to specify at the very least certain parameters or other types of things, and I actually want to talk to you a little bit more
I
about that
completely
later on.
agree.
So that, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and basically, if in a subsection, if the information that is provided by the applicant is insufficient for the board to make a decision or for our engineer to make a decision, we go out and we ask for additional information
In the DEIS.
in the
Yeah,
DEIS.
but I guess if we can head off that eventuality, we're
Yeah.
better off.
Well, this is true, but I,
Just throw out an observation, we can take it however we want as we write, that's for writing the final scope.
Yeah.
That's for each issue.
You'll have months to think about this.
Yes. Yeah.
sorry.
That was the returning. That was not. That was not my reaction to that. It's not being quite comical.
I wish he wouldn't have come in.
A little levity, thank
My
you.
apologies.
It was little Hamlet in the middle.
I wasn't sure if you were joking or you were done. All right, so we had a vote, and Hans, I'm sorry to ask you why, I don't usually do that either,
That's it's important to get the perspective.
but it's important that I
Couple
understand.
questions.
I hope that if the board does have some other items that they don't think we're aware of, and there are so many, not just from this meeting, but other meetings. I hope that they do provide them with us at ASAP, and then
Okay.
member Duda said is the ability to go beyond the 13. But I need to set a time frame so we have an expectation of when we can put pen to paper.
And it
So,
should be and it should be substantive comments based on fact, like, for instance, Mr. Fortright mentioning potential of a well on his property. That's information that's substantive. As opposed to, it just don't want.
okay. I do want to hear from the applicant in a second, but I have one question for one of the commenters and it's not, I'm not questioning what you said, I just don't know what to do with it. So Mike, on the zoning issue, I know you brought this up before, a year ago. I don't know what to do with it because the zoning is the zoning and we don't do zoning. So if you can provide, I'm not looking for an answer tonight, I don't want to have a discussion about it tonight. But if you have specific recommendations as a result of what you proposed as a conundrum of some sort, I'd be happy to listen to them. So just think about it.
No,
Yeah, what's your?
listen, we.
All right, listen, okay, I want to hear from the applicant.
Well, just that. I guess this picks up on Jennifer's observations that. The scoping document isn't the be all and end all of environmental impact statements. In fact, most scoping documents don't go into detail on the methodology of analysis. That's left to the consultant that's doing the EIS. So the scoping document states parrots back the findings of the planning board through their part 3 of the EAF and the resolution with the positive declaration. And then sets the objectives of the DEIS. What's the DEIS going to look at? What information is going to be pulled together in response to the planning board's positive declaration? Scoping documents typically don't have excruciating detail on each section of analysis. And I don't know, if Dave's got any observations on that run counter to mine, but.
I guess the draft scope is gonna be what the draft scope is, what we compile. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of noodling by members of the board and by both Daves, but I hear you. One thing that comes to mind. And I think I'm correct in this, we had indicated. In either part 3 or in the deck, it's probably the part 3. That we were using a number of 55 gallons per person per day. And in the scoping document you provided us with, you said, continue to say 35 gallons. So, you know, that level of detail is something that we're gonna need to make sure you understand what we're looking for, or, yeah, we can punt it to the draft or to the final, but that's a significant difference of opinion and probably goes to some of the public's comments of things that didn't seem to be adequately addressed in what you presented to us.
So in the scoping document, we acknowledge that that the applicant would undertake a hydro study. And that's in simplest form, that's intended to demonstrate what the existing wells are capable of yielding. We wrote that hydro study around conducting pump tests with the installed pumps, as opposed to pulling the pumps and having to put in, have a driller come and put in perhaps higher capacity pumps. So we were going to do it around what the existing pumps have the capability of taking while monitoring water levels in the neighborhood. And based on the yield, whether it's 35 gallons per person per day, 55 gallons per person per day, 70 gallons per person per day, it's going to be related to what the wells can safely yield. Similarly, we're going to be doing the same thing on the wastewater side. The board and more specific comments by your engineer question, is it really known where all the wastewater on the property is currently going? And whether the individual septic systems and leach fields can accommodate that flow. So again, whether it's 35, 55, whatever number, that condition is going to be analyzed. We know what the current Speedies permit limit is. And we're going to have to relate our wastewater projections to that permit limit. If the wastewater projections that we all agree upon exceed the limit of the Speedies permit, either the size of the project has to be reduced or the permit needs to be modified. That's the essence of what the scoping document says on flow. But it may not have we haven't identified what flow rate each individual well is going to run at. And we did specify a duration for pump tests. The comment about whether it can be done in season or not. Well, these wells are in use, supplying water to the camp. So we can't do the pump test of the largest producing wells when that water is needed for the camp. It has to wait till after camp season, when the population is less, and we can furnish alternative water, maybe by a tanker truck for a few days to do the pump test.
Well, those are the things that will, when you get the final draft from us, you'll be able to work out. I mean, to the fact of the Speedies permit of 37,500, I think our engineer was more concerned with, well, he's concerned with that number, but also concerned with the individual septic systems that are all over the property as to what the capacity of each of those individual ones were. So you may have enough total capacity, but you don't have it where you need it.
No, that's.
So we're gonna ask you to prove us that. But we're getting into drafting the document that we haven't even gotten all the comments from the public necessarily.
And I would like to get away from, I think the purpose of the pump test, et cetera, is to demonstrate the impacts to neighboring wells. And until we really know what's going on there from a hydrogeologic point of view, I don't think we should be having a conversation on 55 gallons per day or 35 gallons per day. Is it a camp? Is it a resort? If it's a resort, then what was originally included on the Speedies permit at 110 gallons per day per person, does that apply? So I think in order, before we start looking at these numbers, I think we need to know. We need to see what the system what the capacity of your system is.
That's what the scoping document says.
But I'm just speaking in general here because I'm hearing people go, well, 35 gallons or this or that. I think we need to know, and I think pump tests should be in accordance with proven standards, the DEC methodology for pump tests. I don't know if yours is in there. I read your scope a while ago. I will be providing written comments, but
Dave?
It's pretty straightforward.
A couple of questions, the applicant, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm confused about what the use is now. The original application references a resort, but since Sterling came on, documents have all dropped that and reference only camp. So it's gonna be hard to do the scope if we don't know what the proposal is. Is it a year-round use or a summer use?
The summer use is definitely gonna be in the area of a camp. The winter use will be significantly less than the summer use. There won't be anything like 700.
So there's two uses to the property.
So we're gonna have to get the project
Use it in
description
the
up to
off-season, but
So it's a resort and a summer camp.
yes.
Is it a religious?
round.
It's a year-round resort and the people, I don't know if it was, I don't know the gentleman. I asked this question at another meeting and I was told it is a resort and it's a full-time resort.
I'm just,
I don't know.
I also
listening.
I'm just noting the
So,
project description
Right,
in the
the
draft scope
Description needs,
calls it only a camp.
and it needs to encompass what the activity is on.
So I think we heard the applicant say it's a resort and a camp.
So,
Okay,
thank you.
Is it a religious facility? Because that's an additional
Yes.
use. It is a religious facility. So that's not a use we've dealt with officially.
you have places of worship as a permitted use. There's the whole Arlupa question. Is that what we're after here?
No, I'm just, you're talking about.
You're not
uses.
proposing a place of worship.
what are we doing? I mean, I don't understand what we're doing. So we have to.
We're trying to figure out what the uses are that the applicant's proposing,
Why?
because their documentation is different from item to item.
But is,
Their actual application proposes a resort in camp. The scope as drafted calls it only a camp.
okay, but what, I mean, first of all, the question of use, and we've been through this, and I was gonna say it, but it's generally a question for the building inspector. As to whether if the question is whether the use is appropriate for the site, that's for the building inspector. If the question is what number are we gonna put on their water use as a result of the type of facility, that's something we should, take a look at what the questions are and try to figure that. That's gonna be a very important, fundamental, and maybe a difficult question. I don't think we can get to that right now. I don't think we have enough.
Oh, I'm just trying to get the applicant to say what they're proposing.
We'll put those comments will be in the written scope. So-
Is
Question.
that what we're doing, Dave? Is that what we're trying to figure out the gallons per day based on the use?
No, you're leaping forward.
But then tell me what are we trying to do with this?
The literal application submitted to the board requests two permitted uses, a resort and a day camp. The draft scope only addresses a day camp.
Not a day camp.
Only something else. I'm using the terms in the code.
So we're trying to straighten out the
A
paperwork?
resort is a year-round facility. It's a different animal than a camp. It requires different permits. It's a different use in the town code. It's got different standards that are required to approve it.
What would be in terms of a seeker scoping done?
Now you have year-round activity.
What would be the upshot of different answers?
A resort would be year-round.
But how would that change our scope?
How would it change the scope?
Yeah.
Seasonal variation of traffic, visual impacts are different because of leaf on, leaf off. You want me to keep going?
Okay.
Okay, I think we got an answer. You're telling us it's a year-round resort and an overnight camp.
Overnight camp during the summer, and it's gonna be used as a resort in the off-season.
So it's year-round.
Right, so it's year-round with an ancillary use for an overnight camp in whatever months, July, August, 3 months, I'm not sure.
Second question is, maybe not a question, we're gonna have to pin down what the existing conditions are.
I'm not.
We don't, the whole point of environmental review is to compare what's proposed against what's exists and what could happen. We have still struggled with what's the baseline.
Dave, I agree with you,
I still don't know if we've agreed.
but I have
On what that is.
I have a suggestion on how we
That's-
can get to that. Cause I think that the existing condition could be different depending on what we're analyzing.
Okay.
When we actually get to the meat and potatoes of it. So one of the things I'm asking for is a section on background and history that they add in. That articulates all of the changes that have been made to the site since they purchased it. And that would help us with dates and understanding exactly what has happened since the purchase, because I I know we have some idea of what's happened, but we really don't know what the site changes.
I want to make
Because we-
I want to make an observation to the board on this. That issue, what the baseline is, has been the issue that they've been raising the entire time, because they're claiming the baseline
Yes,
base is equal to what the proposal is. That is in their consistent position. I would suggest, that's what they've been saying,
That is.
and then we're gonna get to that argument. I would suggest, for purposes of the environmental review, that we compare the use, whether it's considered baseline or the proposal, whatever, the use to the existing speedies, the existing septic system, and also the use as it's proposed to the carrying capacity of the aquifer. Because otherwise, we're gonna get into an argument over when they increase the number of people, perhaps without having any permit, but they're gonna claim that's still gonna be part of the baseline. I think it's more important to determine what they're proposing to do against whether the septic system can handle that discharge. Regardless of when they ramped up to the number of people that.
We have, and it's submitted in Lauren's letter and it's submitted in our files, we do have what the information that was provided by Barry Medenbach, PE, on the outfalls and the amount of people per room, et cetera. We have that from 2012, and that is what the DEC wastewater speedies permit is based on. So I think you can use that as a baseline.
but
Okay.
to my point, the reason I would like a section that articulates all of the changes made to the site is one of the things that's not mentioned in the scope, I don't think, unless I missed it, was stormwater. Because they do need to do a SWIP. And so the stormwater, I don't know if that existing condition is gonna be what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Because it's a totally different area. Technical area, sometimes your baseline is different for the issue that you're analyzing, they can change. I don't want to get into weeds on it. The point is, I was thinking if there was a section that articulated the history and background of the site, that would help us understand where changes have made and how it could apply to our analysis. Because to a certain extent, some of what we have to analyze has already happened. So we need to understand what changes have been made so we can try and figure out what the existing condition was. You know what I mean?
I do, but
So it's complicated. This is complicated.
Okay, so
And work our way backwards.
let's, all the more reason to get to it on the 13th, and primarily to talk about these matters. Any more information from the public, and whatever the board has, you sent me some comments.
I'll put it in a comment tracking log.
And anybody else from the board who has some concerns as to how, what we want to ask them in the final scoping document. So we can put together a final scoping
I
document
mean, do you want me,
that we all can agree with.
do you want me to go through briefly my comments?
I'm sorry,
Do you want me to share my comments?
no, not now.
I do have one question, given the scope of the work here. Would it be helpful for the board to begin working on morphing the draft scope into the final scope before we finish hearing from the public, then we still hear from the public and get a comment?
Yes,
Yes,
So,
yeah,
Yes.
start incorporating now, yeah.
okay, it's not.
yeah. And we can talk later, we could talk about how we're gonna do that, but there's a lot of work to do here.
Right.
And we gotta make sure we're all on the same page. I think that's important. Okay, I started asking the applicant if he had any comments, and we kind of got distracted, and then your lawyer was beginning to have gasped a few times.
you can guess again.
So does the applicant have anything to say? If not, we're gonna move on to the next project for the night.
Just very briefly, with respect to the use, the intent was certainly for the EIS to examine the camp use and the off-season use. Of course, both would be analyzed. That's certainly the intent. And then, you know, our goal with the scoping document was to identify all of the issues that were raised by the neg deck or the pause deck. Sorry, and then go through all of those, identify the broad issues that require further analysis. So, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Jeff? All right, Mr. Millspine, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, good.
See you on the 13th.
All right, so hopefully we'll talk in the meantime we have a lot to do. All right, we're gonna take a break. And we'll come back. So the round of MCRT for the night is over, and we're gonna move on into Verizon.
We'll have- we'll write it on the end.
Well, I understand since everyone's going in different directions. I don't,
Realizing
I don't know. The only thing that scares me is tracking this. Because you know, there are. It's a lifetime joke about tracking things from the committee. So far, yeah, great. I've been there. Leave this for one night.
So I know.
I don't know. That's a scary answer. Straight forward. You know what I'm talking about. I think he had a question. What he kept saying is, he says, "Oh, today."
Right. Well, the problem.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you only call. Essentially says that it's right. I don't need. As I said, see.
Said. Yeah, that's not what
Yeah.
That's it.
I can tell you, because it's weird. So you gotta go to the.
Just say it.
I did look up there. That thing about the. Prior to that, there was. I don't know what that said. So I'm going around. This was not required, in fact. We reached out to them. When that's. I don't have the content. I don't. There's no document. Yeah, no, I believe that.
And that's where.
They don't have anything online. Every file somewhere.
So.
Yeah, mine's 95 here and
So that's fine, that's why you don't.
It's like, probably shouldn't.
I'm sorry. Somebody who sat up here for 10 years.
I would like to continue with Verizon. We're gonna get started with Verizon in 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's.
I don't usually do that. I don't feel like. What people vote, the voters what you vote. Let us-
Those like.
You're nuts. Is that okay?
What I would tell them to do.
Right, I know.
And some girls.
You always run on the rail. Just all the rail trail.
Where am I going?
The rail trail, I saw.
Yeah, I mean.
Officially.
Yeah. Like, yeah,
Early flats, is that where you saw?
yeah.
I run there a lot, usually 3 times a week, yeah.
So.
Were all
So
over
we're
just
gonna
that.
make it.
No, I just run on that one, it's just a cement. Oh, okay. I don't, I do recognize you, I know I don't.
I just saw you and I was like, I was, yeah.
I have one of those crazy shirts on that said Socrates, it had a picture of Socrates on it and it was saying something like.
No, I didn't notice the shirt. It's like, oh, you run by and I was like, okay. I know him from somewhere.
That's right.
No, so I know him from somewhere. By the time we turned the left, it's like, now I know. And I was like, okay, I wonder, I do all the rounds, because I go. Now, so we're so lucky to have all the places that I want to have. I walk. I was like.
I do, it's always fun. Today, it's whatever I make, the difference is fine. So, I just,
All right, we love the drive by.
but today's Monday, so it's Friday, because I wasn't home Saturday, Sunday.
Friday.
Early, I don't know what time. And I did have my soccer. And I looked at it and smiled, it said, strictus and strict hemlock. There's a picture of him drinking the hemlock. That's pretty old.
Yeah, no, we're gonna.
It's just because
But
it
it's-
for his attraction.
So on the face, I was like, yeah, no, the face, but it's out of context, and I'm walking the dog, and I'm.
That's weird. Now I know we.
Hi, Greg. I'm okay.
Before we get started.
This is nothing, this is right now, but
We're not talking about.
so we're extending public comment here's on the store. I don't think so.
Okay, we'll talk. All right,
I know, I'm telling you.
let me have a second just to get my paperwork through in order.
That's what. That'd be a great game if you could watch it on replay, but which one? Yeah, I don't heard, seen commentary. Yeah.
Okay, you guys ready?
So.
Hello, Scott.
Don't talk about US.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Um. Okay. So just an update on Verizon, where we're at. We closed the public hearing at our last meeting, which was the meeting of June 8th. We did extend the commentary period, written commentary period, to this past Monday, which would have been June 22nd, and we did receive additional comments. So now we're at the point of going through the comments that we received either on the 8th or before, as well as the written comments that we may have received between the 8th and the 22nd. And I think the issue to deal with tonight, among others, is whether or not we need to make any changes to the CND. And so I asked Dave Church, the part 3 in the CND, and perhaps even the part 2. So I asked Dave Church to put together a memo and give us some advice as to what we need to change, if anything, in the CND part 2 and part 3. And so Dave did that. And he suggested a number of things. So let me go one by one, and then we'll come back and deal with it. The first thing that he suggested is that, and this is in no order of priority necessarily. He suggested first that brought to our attention that the DEC has changed the part 2 to include items 19 and 20. And items 19 and 20, 19 has to do with environmental justice. And number 20 has to do with, or actually it says impact on disadvantaged communities. And number 20 has to do with future physical climate risks. So that was one item that Dave became aware of, that the DEC changed, and raised the question of whether or not we need to have the applicant deal with that, and whether this board has to deal with that. So that was one item that I want to deal with tonight. The next item that he addressed is some comments from the public that we might need to change our answers. Dave, correct me where I'm going off track, but change our answers on the part 2, number 1, and part 2, number 11. Number 1 has to do with impact on land, and number 11 has to do with impact on open space and recreation. And it was Dave's recommendation that we should in fact go back and redo those parts and add some additional commentary. He indicated in his memo of the 26th that it wasn't significant, but that they did need to change. And then the last thing that he addressed was on the zoning issue, or the zoning issue. And he pointed out that the public has made the comment that the extra use on this property may in fact violate some of our zoning code, and I'm really summarizing here. When I went back and Dave went back to take a look at what our zoning code said about the use of this particular property, we consulted section 140-8 and also 140-26. And either one or both of these sections have been dealt with before, mentioned before by the public. So in 140-8, summarizing, suggested that multiple uses are permitted on this property. However, those multiple uses are allowed under a special use permit, given that the lot development standards have already been met. And then we went and researched section 140-26, which dealt with open space and recreation, and specific to multifamily apartment buildings or multifamily units. And not to our surprise, but to our chagrin, maybe, it was very clear 140-26, section L 1 through 5. It was very clear that this particular site requires the identification of open space in addition to whatever your two apartments, where the open space is. And also made clear that that open space, that 50% of that open space had to be delineated as recreation space. So those were the issues that Dave raised in the context of his memo from the 26th of June. I want to go through each one of them. Dave, did I catch the issues that you raised adequately?
Yes. I also elaborated on the environmental justice question,
Okay,
not just you gotta fill out a form, but
right.
how do you analyze it in the guidance from New York State DEC?
So why don't we go through, let's skip the form issue for now. We'll come back to that. Let's deal with the environmental justice issue, which was raised by one of the public members of the public back on the 8th or before that. Would you inform the board what your view is towards that?
All right, so it's officially part of the seeker regulations as of June 12th, whatever that is, weeks ago.
Yeah.
There is I found in the record some reference to the effective date of that. There's could be some debate about whether this applies to an action that already has either a positive or a negative declaration, so environmental justice is valid. Strictly speaking, the DEC guidance expects to do an analysis to have two things. First, you look at a map set. I looked at two different map sets. They've now compacted these into a online assessment tool that went live early this month, which I uses US Census geography. So for better or worse, it's about census blocks and tracts. If folks haven't dealt with those, they make no sense to the average person. They're just a means by which the federal government aggregates the people, similar or equal numbers of people in same geographies. And then if the action is in or is going to affect a disadvantaged community, there's the question of whether there's pollutants involved, is defined by another section of environmental conservation law, and will that disproportionately impact the disadvantaged community. So the map sets and the online tool, there's no environmental justice, there's no disadvantaged communities, I should say, in the town of Rochester. There are some in the town of Warsing right next door, but based on the criteria they use, there aren't any. There is a outlier set of maps that the DEC's published called potential disadvantaged communities, which seem to relate to the climate work that was done under the governor's direction. to try to get at this in a different context. And just north of the subject area is a potential area, but it's not an area that the DEC says triggers the need for this analysis, technically speaking. The second is are there pollutants involved as listed in the environmental conservation law? The public brought up, loosely speaking, 3 pollutants potentially. Radio frequency emissions, which I will defer the conversation to others. The introduction of microplastics into the environment and the potential use of pesticides and herbicides to maintain the property. What pesticide and herbicide, the presumption is that if they were to use them, they'd be legal. Of course, they have to be applied. I don't see any of those in the list of pollutants that are referred to in the cross-reference to the environmental conservation law. So the 2-part test, there's no environmental justice impacts from this proposal in my estimation. However, I've recommended 2 things you consider, putting aside the radio frequency emission question, which is enormous and I don't fully understand even, but essentially preempted. As a health matter, you've already talked about the possibility of the final approval prohibit the use of herbicide and pesticide to maintain the property. You could consider that as a mitigation step if that's worthy. The second issue is this monopine, which was first brought up to my knowledge in the response from Palisades Interstate Park Commission. Where they said, look at this as an option, right? Monopines, in some people's testimony, is you're throwing up a bunch of plastic fake branches on top of an existing tower. Don't bother. So they've proposed, I'm just stating what the comments are. The comments are, it's the introduction of plastic into the environment in a situation where it's already documented that microplastics are basically everywhere. They're, if you don't know, they're in your blood, they're in your water, they're in the soil. And do you want to consider what the pros and cons of the monopine versus, that's the only potential pollutants I could identify from the commentary, noting none of these are in the list that the DEC references as what's called a pollutant in environmental conservation law.
So Dave, on environmental justice and on this issue of climate pollutants, on environmental justice, this area is not in that one of those.
No significant
So
impact.
there's nothing to do there. And on the pollutants, we dealt with herbicides and pesticides.
Well, you've
And
discussed it in the past.
and we put some, did we put something into the CND prohibiting the use of herbicides and pesticides?
Good question, remind me.
I don't think, check that, I don't
And if
think
he's
we did.
using a weed, so we're gonna start specifying you're gonna use an electric weed whacker instead, I don't.
Is that a pesticide?
No, but if they're not gonna use herbicides or pesticides, how are they gonna maintain the site?
Oh, it's for the board to decide whether you want to put it in there or not.
Right, okay.
I leave it to you. And on the RF, we can't consider it. And on the microplastics, my attitude is the advantage of having this thing shielded, as we have talked about on nauseam about, outweighs, I think, the potential for any microplastic.
And I also would like to add that in our code, it does mention, I can't give you the, I think it's 140, somewhere, 140-29, it does mention that the tower should be screened.
So this is a way.
So, so if we take that away, then it could be said that we're not screening the facility as per town code.
All right, so I think on these 2 issues,
So on environmental justice, and if you want to,
Oh,
there is a new item 19 on the environmental assessment form part 2 on impacts to disadvantaged communities, which I could argue you can check now.
okay. And on number 20, which is this one on climate.
20. So 20 gets more complicated, aggravated by the lack of documentation, or in one case, how to interpret the CEO's zoning determination from nearly 2 years ago.
Wait,
So,
wait a minute, Dave, on
is that where we're
20,
going there?
no, 20 is the future physical climate risks.
Oh, yes,
That's also a no.
yes.
Yes,
Yes, it's a no.
Okay. So do we need to modify our part 3?
Well, the discussion we've had is, you want to go through the exercise and just do it to complete the record? With the open question, it's not clear to me it's applicable to this applicant. Because of the status of the application, they already have a determination.
Yeah, have we deemed this application as complete?
Sorry,
Have
You
we
could-
deemed that
you-
this application is complete? I think we have, and.
for the CN, for
You
the
can't schedule a
CND,
public hearing in your code without a complete application.
Right, so then, if we've said it's complete, then legally, haven't we accepted the EAF and we can't go back and change and update it with a new EAF?
No. Look, seeker is about taking a hard look.
Yeah,
About looking at the potential impacts that we've uncovered, that the applicants uncovered, that the public's uncovered. We do that, I'm old school,
so
okay?
fine.
I don't care that much about the forms are to help us, they're not shackles for us, okay?
Okay.
At the end of the day, we've got to write up our evaluation of these issues in a way that shows that we've taken a hard look. That is done in the part 3, it's done in the resolution for the CND, it's done in a bunch of different places. The forms and the changes in the forms, again, there's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with deciding what to do, but we shouldn't over analyze what to do about the forms. The fundamental question is, the public has raised a prospective EJ issue. Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? And should is it so little a thing that we could just ignore it, which is what the present conversation was about? Or as we were discussing earlier, should we take the issue and write up our response, which is generally, I believe, going to be that it doesn't impact EJ for some of the reasons they've said. So we have process issues here. Are we going to change our documents in light of certain issues that have been raised by the public and also that may have been raised by changes in the law? Then we can go back and decide what to do about the form.
Okay.
But
I
the
was
idea
just looking at it
that we can't go back and change a form when we think it's wrong is just not right.
uh,
I have a
Hans,
question for you, Mr. Gordon.
Sure.
So I'm concerned about precedent.
But what precedent?
Yeah, so my understanding was once we have the resolution, that's kind of the date when the decision has been made at this level. When a law comes into effect later on, do we need to consider it or not? What is from a legal perspective? That's a serious
Fair-
concern because it would
That's kind of
affect
what I
our
was trying to
future.
Fair
our
question.
future decision.
I am ambiguous in my own mind. If we were to ratify the CND tonight, I am not clear in my own mind as to what the effective date of it is, whether it was the original or now. So I'll let you know that, and if Scott has an opinion or other, I'm willing to listen. I don't know, and I'm not that worried about it. The people who should be worried about it are the people that might want to sue over it because it relates to the statute of limitations. But to get to your question, if we come up with an initial CND, we'll just call it that we set the public hearing on, and then DEC makes a determination. By the way, I want to say one thing about DEC's regulation that went into effect on June, whatever it was, 12th or 13th.
12.
It was based on legislation that the legislature passed in 2002 and 2003. So the idea that EJ is something that's just sort of come out of the clouds in the first 2 weeks of June is just incorrect. Something that if there was a significant EJ issue, if we knew that a particular project was impacting a disadvantaged community, we should be on top of it regardless of when DEC's regulation is effective. So to finalize the answer to your question, if we've done a draft at one point, we hold a public hearing on it, which is what we're supposed to have a public comment. The public tells us something. It says, oh, we now know this. We don't say, oh, we're not going to do it because DEC just wrote the regulations became effective. The point is to take a hard look. And, at the end of this looks you know, this looks important, it's current now. In a year, if we were before a judge trying to explain what we did, to explain to him that we're not gonna look at this because Lindsay's regulation was actually a few weeks after we did our initial, that's not a position I would recommend to the board. In other words, if we know something, we should deal with it under seeker. We're gonna get in a lot less trouble dealing with it than ignoring it based on some presumed technicality. And I don't even buy the technicality here because the legislation was in place 3 and 4 years ago that said we look at things like this. So, and even without it, you know, it's an EJ community, but the point is if the critical issue for that community, Dave's right that the regulation says pollution, but actually the most important seeker issue that could be seen as impacting that apartment building is the loss of recreational amenities due to what we've
Okay, so
identified.
we're not there yet, so let's deal with it. I've always felt that at some point in time, the applicant has some rights, and the fact that the statute changed shouldn't cause the applicant to have to go back and redo stuff. Having said that, I don't see any harm in going back and redoing the part 2 and 3 for this question 19 and 20. Particularly since the impact is nothing. So why quibble about it?
That's right, we should write up our response.
The applicant, if
Public's concern and.
the applicant might want to fight that fact and if he or object to that, but it just seems that there's no negative impact to going ahead and doing it. Just making the change. You've indicated that one, this particular parcel doesn't sit in a
Disadvantaged community.
Thank you, disadvantaged community area. And number 2, we just dealt with the pollutant issue, number 20, we just dealt with that by saying the RF we can't deal with, herbicides and pesticides, we can always add to our conditional negative deck. If the board wishes to add that to it. And as far as microplastics, the benefit of having a tower made of plastic with plastic shielding or plastic leaves and branches far outweighs in my mind and the issue with the microplastics. So I agree with you that I think if we just go through and we break through the number 19 and 20, and I can hand out the form to everybody, that we just dispense with this particular
That's a
issue.
good suggestion.
Hey, let me finish with them. Is it different from what I'm gonna, do you know what I'm gonna say?
Go ahead.
So I would suggest we go through this,
Thank you.
just answer the question and make it part of the record. And then modify our part 3 and the C and D.
Well, that's where I was going with it, was the board may be aware that David and Dave drafted modifications to the part 3. I've marked them up as well, and so that would be the explanation of that would be where we explain what our thoughts are on it. The forms, yeah, we can go through and that's fine, we can check this box or that box, but the part 3 where we explain our thinking is probably the more impactful document.
So is this, do you refer to?
It's challenging. Yes.
Rick, do you want to do items 1 and 11 while you're at it?
Yes, go ahead and tell us about items 1 and 11.
Oh, okay. So the other through comment, the other public comment also raised issues related to item 1, which is impact of land, and item 11, impact to open space and recreation, which I researched further. Accepting the method that you answer the yes/no question first, and then you answer the other little questions, which is completely flipped from where I was tutored, but it usually need more detailed information to answer the broad, larger question. But nonetheless, using that methodology, which you used with the other questions, I think you do have to answer impact on land, yes.
Because what?
Because there's the soil type has water less than 3 feet below surface. Okay, so that I think it still could be checked low because of the limited size of the building envelope and the limited amount of subsurface disturbance for the structure.
Well, the building is cell tower, not a basement.
Correct. And then there's item 11, which is impact open space and recreation, which I believe it needs to be answered yes. And there's, based on what I know, the questions could be answered no or low impact. Unless we were to learn that there's a documented file that upon approval of the apartment complex, there was a required set aside for open space and recreation, which at this point is in the code. There's some mixed research about when, if I give you the chronology here, it's based on what I can find relatively quickly. The Ulster County Parcel Viewer says the apartment buildings were built in 1985.
Okay.
The code, the bulk of your current zoning codes, according to the clerk, does go back to the 60s, but the essence of the current code is 1983.
I want to make a point.
So but I don't know the provision I can elaborate on. I have no documented evidence about when that provision was adopted.
I want to make a point. And we've discussed this a lot, and maybe it's hard to internalize and apply. We do not do code enforcement. It's a conversation we've had with a number of folks that are here. It's a conversation we've had in other contexts. What we do, so the details of, whether it's non-conforming use or other things, that is not for us. That is for another department of the town. And in fact, the application is before the ZBA, and people who are concerned about the actual restrictions of the code can go talk to that element of the town. We're doing seeker. And what I said at the last meeting is that the prospective loss of recreational resources, if that be the case, is a seeker issue. And so is, for that matter, is a prospective loss of open space. And what I've also told the group is that from time to time, we use as a measure of seeker impacts an existing code. Doesn't mean we're enforcing the code. We don't write stormwater permits, that's the EDC, and we don't, but we can use those regulations to inform us as to whether a project is going to have a significant impact. We do that all the time, actually. We do it with stormwater all the time. And so here, my suggestion is, we're marking up a CND, it's a seeker document, it's a seeker issue, and we can use the code as we see fit to measure whether there is an impact under seeker, and then deal with that as in terms of our hard look. But we are not enforcing the code, and therefore the exact time when the code came into being, and whether it was before or after this had a site plan approval, is actually, that's the sort of stuff that the building inspector would dive into if there was an enforcement. What we need to figure out is whether the construction of this facility is going to take out potentially recreational space and also open space as the code calls for. The code has a certain design that it wants us to think about. And is that being impacted here? And if it is, how should we study it? What should we do about it? So I just want to lay that out so we don't necessarily worry about all these particular code enforcement details, but we look at the theme, the resource that the code is trying to protect. That's what we want to do, and you may or may not.
But essentially, let me point out to you, I agree with you, and I have to say that I agree with you so we can get to my next point, which is, I said over and over again, as I think the church has, we do interpret zoning here. Now, maybe I'm using the wrong word, but so whether you call it seeker or you call it site plan, in effect, the zoning code 140-26. If we go ahead and say yes or moderate to the seeker number 11, if we say yes, we are in effect saying that the code 140-26 has not been appropriately applied or appropriately taken care of.
I will push back on that. What we're saying is
Well,
that
right.
there was an impact, there was a potential impact.
Yes, and we have to solve the impact.
Fair enough.
And the solution of the impact is part of either the CND, or we let it slide to the site plan and we put it in the condition, or do both.
Or we just say it's not an impact.
And so let's talk about the solution.
That's right.
Well,
I
if
can
I
tell-
may, for
go ahead.
clarification, the reason why I got into the research was because in a perfect world, we'd be able to go back to a file that the apartment complex was approved, and there was a condition in there or a lack of condition that said there's open space and recreation, and here it is on the map. And then I could put the tower site on the map and see if it's in the open space or recreation area or not. We have none of them.
Why, if you might have some information that's helpful,
Go ahead.
but, we were asked to contact the property owner. I did not do that personally, so I don't have a relationship with that person. But someone on behalf of Verizon did that. And I don't know his experience, I don't know when he acquired his property, but he basically said that provision to 26L 1-5 basically came into being in 2014 when that code was adopted.
It's not true.
He said it was never required back in 1985 when it was
Who's he?
built, the property owner. That's all I can tell you.
That's not true.
Okay.
Well, with all due respect though, too, I agree with Dave. This really is an enforcement issue. This is not for the planning board. Well, it's a secret issue, though. What? It's a secret issue. No, I agree with what you said, and I think the board had to say, okay, we'll taking away, 0.15 acres of 20 acres of space. Will that impact the open space? And the answer is no. I gave some numbers to Dave Church about how it's insignificant. So that issue is a secret issue. I agree. We believe it's completely insignificant.
Like,
Hang on.
all I'm gonna ask is, can you speak to the property owner and in good faith, if we're asking for, the site is 50 by 50, can the property owner put aside an area for the residents as an open space playground?
And the request was made.
Okay, it hadn't gotten to that part.
No,
It was requested.
The request was made and I.
Always ask.
And I said we were asking, and in good faith, we asked.
Okay.
What do you say?
He said no, he said that.
Okay, so
Well, that's.
I've kept good track.
Yeah.
What?
That's not our problem.
No, I know, but it's not.
Hang on,
That's not a
Scott.
problem, but I'm just.
Hang on. I kept real good track of what was put in place in 2014, what was not.
Okay,
All right. I actually have the red line version of what was done back in 2014. I saved that
okay.
versus whatever else we've been using since then. It's not, that section of the code is not redlined, which means it wasn't done in 14. It was done way before that. And a little bit of research that Dave and Stacy has done would suggest it was back in
83.
So
Yeah, there was a code at 83.
all
They
due
don't
res-
have access to that.
all due respect to the landlord, he's wrong. It wasn't done in 14. Okay, period.
Just the message.
So you can tell them that because I have the original red line version of the 2014. It's not redlined. The second thing. And I'm not gonna, we have all night, you can talk, but I just want to. The issue he doesn't want to do it. As Jennifer said, it's not a problem.
Right.
If we decide to
It's not.
put something into the C and D that says, look. The code says you gotta do this, in order to have this multiple use, you have to be in compliance with all the existing zoning. He's not. Seeker looks at the entire site, not just the action here, but the entire site. So the entire site is out of compliance with the code, 140-26.
Not according to the building department though, and that
You didn't talk to
determination,
you didn't talk to the building department.
you have a determination that, and it says,
I can read it.
and the planning board, you could have appealed to the ZBA. That's unusual, but it's allowed. I know you never do it, but.
No, we don't need to do that to enforce an open space
Yeah,
requirement
yeah.
in C and D. That's not, I don't.
This, but if the CEO determination says the site's in compliance, you have to accept that. You can't, you don't have, only the ZBA can
If you're
overturn.
taking away open space and we want to mitigate that impact.
This is why
I don't
want to talk about compliance with the code. That's Because why you it's- get into arguments
Yeah.
like this
This is-
about,
And I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
is it
Any of that
a
stuff.
question for the board? And respectfully for Scott, is it a seeker issue that they're gonna be occupying 2,500 square feet of this thing plus? Based on the guidance that the code gives us as to what the town cares about? That's the question. If we think that there's an issue here, then we can take steps in the CND to require certain things. And you're right, it's not code enforcement, but it's essentially a condition on not doing a pos deck.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's all seeker.
Yes.
So it's a condition on not doing a pos deck, and it may end up actually being a condition, ultimately, if that's what we do in the site plan approval, if that's what the condition on the pos deck says, but it's a seeker issue. We need to decide whether they're taking away recreational and open space. And then if ultimately people want to have an argument with the building inspector as to when they have a pre-existing non-conforming use, whether it goes back to the eighties or the nineties or whatever, they can have that, but this board should not waste its time with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Agreed.
what I would propose that we do in the context of the C and D is that we insist upon open space, identifying the open space outside of the apartments and the 2,500 square feet of space for the tower. So we insist on identifying the open space, and of that open space, that half of that has to be dedicated to recreation. And we define and we indicate that we want to see that recreation, the condition insists upon the recreation. And that's part of what Verizon will have to accomplish with the landlord in order to get the approval.
Well, define your stage, you tell me to get the final site plan approval or to get a CO?
To get a CO. We could write it as part of the site plan. In order to get a CO, they have to have the appropriate amount of recreation space. As per the code, you have to go back to the
What
code.
does that mean, though? Just space?
No, an actual active recreation, because the code talks about active recreation.
It does.
It also talks about money to be set aside in order to support that recreation space.
But payment in lieu of that recreation space was actually specifically not permitted.
It's not in the.
Not in the.
Now, there's a subsection that talks about creating, there's some detail about creating a mechanism to ensure there's improvements for the recreation space. So if you were to do an apartment complex today,
Yeah,
half the property would have to be dedicated open space. And there's language about how that's defined and managed, right? And then half of the half has to be recreation area.
right.
And there's language in there about how that's to be improved
Right.
and financed.
One section I thought said, if you have 50 units, I don't think we have 50 units there. You have to have a half an
No,
acre.
it was
So that's the
25.
Right,
It's the definition of multifamily residential.
but I'm just trying to figure out are we talking about?
Can you
I don't.
pull up 14026? There's nothing in there about 50 that I remember.
Yeah, it's 126L5. And it says, if you have a 50-unit apartment complex, you have to have a half an acre playground. So now my thinking is, are you gonna try to impose that? But if you do, we don't have a 50-acre apartment, or not we, they don't have a 58 unit apartment complex there. So it applies. This is why it's an enforcement issue, in my view. Because otherwise the planning board's gonna be making up the rules for that.
Which is fine.
Well, if we're trying to isolate it to being a seeker issue for discussion, right?
Yep.
Right, Rick?
Yep.
So as a seeker issue, reinforcing what everyone said, that this code compliance question is another day, perhaps. But as a seeker issue, is it no, low, or moderate impact? And how do you measure that when you don't know where the open space and recreation is on the property? That's the dilemma that I have. Is the little tower site impacting it or not? How do you know?
Well, there's two issues. One is, there was some statement from the public that some of the kids played there, although that, one of the members of the board told me later on that they know people in the facility and that was not happening. So we have a factual issue as to whether there's actual loss of recreational space that people are actually using. The second issue is the loss of 2,500 square feet on the property, right? It's going to go straight to this particular use, and whether that impacts the ability of the property to provide recreational space at some point. I mean, I think I see that as boiling down to two seeker issues. On the factual side, if we don't have any facts that kids are actually playing there, that one kind of filters away, and so we're left with the loss of 2,500 square feet.
Are we sure that 2,500 is the correct number?
Well, no, I mean,
It's 6,100. It's 6,100.
that's right.
It's 10,000 square feet.
Why 10,000?
No, it's
10,000 square feet. The lease is for 100 feet by 100 feet. There have to be 20 feet roads, 20-foot roads. So we're talking about
Whatever it
roads.
is.
We have the number, it's in the plans, it's 6,100.
Square
The
feet.
fact that
It's 6,100 square feet,
6,100.
it's 6,100 square feet.
It's not
Give or
50 by
take.
50.
And you're talking about what our disturbance
Quiet.
includes 50 by 50, yes, we lease more space, it's not shown on the plans as being developed. It's a 50 by 50 with roads, and yes, and we account for that, so not 2,500, it's around 6,000, 6,100, I gave those under. Are you putting, does that include any sort of buffer land that you want to, keep people away from the fence or stuff like that? Do you have any? No. That's not the purpose of your lease?
Got what you need?
No. Okay. So whatever
Rick, you got
number
what you need?
turns out, 6,100, that's, we have to figure out whether that's. So the question is, the 6,100 square feet, which is 0.15 acres, does that really significantly impact, a 25 acre site? Right, that's right. That's the question. Question. That's right. And our answer is resoundingly no. It would be absurd. I'm sorry, what?
What about the wetlands?
So
It's representing the facts.
So.
Would you mind not participating, because there is no time for the public to participate tonight? I would like to have a discussion with the applicant and not have an argument with you specifically, or with you.
Best.
Go ahead.
Again, so we've told you what the square footage was always identified on the plan. 6,100. I may have that a little off, it's around 6,000, so give or take. And I gave that information to the church, the Dave Church. So it's 1/7 of an acre. Yeah. It's still, the question is there, and in your regs, 50% of the space has to be open space, and then 50% of that has to be recreation space. So like you said, the question is, will the development of 0.15 acres take away enough open space and recreation space to be non-compliant? Now, the answer would be different if we knew it complies. The answer would be different if we knew that the children were playing there, which was one of the claims that was made, but that we don't, the board can decide whether we have enough evidence to make that sort of finding. I won't comment any further. Otherwise, we're left with the loss of space within the context of the site, and the board can make whatever decision it wants on that.
So in my mind, in the absence of documentation, you've got a dilemma. However, given the scale and the specific answers in the EAF, it's no to low, unless we can evidence, as Dave said, that the tower site is actually in a known open space or recreation area. And again, there was one comment on that, but as I recall, but it wasn't backed up, and at least one board member told me that they didn't think that was true.
There was one comment that made that area was used by the kids. But
It wasn't necessarily about the lease area. It was a comment of just somewhere someone may have put some playground equipment that they purchased on their own, where no one said it was in the lease area.
So Dave, can you summarize where we're at with this?
Am I capable of it,
I know you're capable of it, but could you?
Please. I still think you need to answer item 11, yes. And you have.
What's item 11?
Open space, impact on open space and recreation.
Okay.
And there are, I think, 3 sub-questions that need to be answered, at least low. With a lack of documentation, it's hard to make a case that it would be moderate or large impact.
Okay, so
that noting, when you want to talk about it, you've got this trigger issue about the multiple use question, which I think can be addressed in your final decision, not in seeker.
so you're suggesting that be dealt with in the.
I don't know if you want to get into it or not.
The multiple use question.
My memo. Well, you have, let's see here.
We can cut them all down and make them all.
The code enforcement officers permit 24/736, so it's done in late 2024. A note said that special use permit is required and that quote unquote applicant has met zoning requirements and no physical restrictions apply. Whatever that means, I pointed out to Rick, when I first encountered that phrase, I was a bit baffled by it. However, 140-8B says says to have a multiple uses on a single lot, which this is a proposal of. Is allowed provided all development standards are met. And one of the development standards for multifamily, the primary use on the property is open space and recreation set aside.
Okay, so we know that there's no open space set aside, there's no recreation set aside. The question becomes, is what the,
Is the CEO's determination make that moot
right, or not?
or not? And whether it does or not, you have to give a special permit for a second use on the property. What does the 140-8B do for that?
So if we have to give a,
Can you, in essence, as part of the special use criteria, require that the open space and recreation area be defined?
well, it seems that we can. In spite of what the CEO said a while ago, that all zoning requirements have been met. If we have to give a permit or permission for a second use, and 140-8 has not been complied with, we can't go forward with it. Because it hasn't been met.
It rapidly becomes a legal or a code enforcement.
Well, it hasn't been met. I mean, you could throw up the fact that the CEO said everything's been met, but clearly it's not been met. And so the CEO was incorrect.
You can't just say, that has to be appealed. There are legal
Get
issues.
us,
We do not sit in a.
get us to a point, I know that, get us to a point where we can either drop it or say to the applicant, you've got to come up with some recreation space. I know what you're gonna say, we can't deal with zoning.
Well, we.
Okay.
We can't.
How do we get to a point where the missing recreation that should have been there, and now that we're looking at this from a seeker point of view, I think we can insist that it be there.
Here's,
How do we get to that
here's
point?
one suggestion, which is a modification of what you were going to suggest. Which is that as we load in a new condition that requires the applicant to straighten this out with the CEO as a condition of getting a CO. That means that we're not making the decision, we're just identifying this problem. And before you get a CO, you go talk to this is, in other words, it is true legally that once a CO says there's no further physical restrictions, that's basically it, but you can raise the issue again with them. You can say, we think you missed this, we could do it, the public can do it, the applicant can do it. You can go back to CEO and say, take a second look at this. And so if we put in a condition that tells the applicant to straighten it out with the CEO, to whatever condition should apply, whether it's grandfathered or whatever, then that it gets it off our desk. We don't make the decision, but we make them straighten out the zoning.
So if just something, an observation that may circumvent this entire argument is that, now when you look at the aerials, the project site is treed. You know, it's not open.
Correct.
Grass area. And more so, there is open grass area surrounding the apartment buildings. It's obviously recreational area. So I would argue that if this is recreational area, there's plenty of other treed areas on the property. That would
You mean like
replace that.
for playground?
We're not, this project is not taking away a flat grassed area. By my record.
Well, it is, but it's
Yeah,
not taking.
did anyone go to?
No, it's not. I mean, it's a treed area.
Okay.
What we're talking about,
Yeah.
where the project is has trees on it. And if the argument is, yeah, well, that's treed recreational space, there's plenty of other treed recreational space on this property. So I, from my perspective, I don't see that we're taking away recreational space in this project.
I just would like to say, I was at the site, I don't know who else, I think you were at the site, we all walked the site, does anybody have any recollections? It was scrub growth, it was not,
It was all scrub growth.
yeah, So just saying what it was, I mean,
Except for immediately around the property, which was mowed, mostly in the back.
right, but
Human
where,
development site.
yeah, where the proposed tower is supposed to be.
It wasn't especially accessible, right?
Well,
Yeah, it was pretty scrubby.
facts are helpful to a seeker review and
Yeah.
observe the facts, that's useful.
Yeah, the core site is relatively new growth. It was obviously cut not that long ago.
Right.
It's not mature trees.
No.
Right.
Yeah, so to isolate this, we've got the seeker question. To me, it still makes sense to answer item 11, yes, because there is the potential loss. It's not actual loss. The question is whether it may result in loss. And then there are 3 sub-questions, including the proposed action may result in the loss of current or future recreation resource. I think that is, these can be answered no or small, unless there's a surprise dump of documentation that shows in 1985, here's the site plan. And there was supposed to be a recreation area on that portion of the
But
property. That's
you're-
not, and it's not there.
You're hypothesizing that, we don't know if that's true.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So otherwise, I think it's nowhere low impact. It's the,
And therefore, what the implication is, we don't have to discuss it any further in the part 3.
Correct.
well, you took the approach with the current part 3, that if you answered yes, you had an explanation.
Even if it's no or small.
Correct.
Okay. Fine.
So Dave, the 2 Daves took a shot. Did they see that? You all see that?
The red line?
Yeah, if you accept that methodology and choose to answer item 1, impact on land is yes. And item 11, impact on open space and recreation is yes. We provided some possible language. And then Rick, you want to go do the exercise of going through new items 19 and 20, right?
Yes. I think that's what you're advising, that we go through it and we acknowledge it and we just answer the material.
I will defer to Dave on how to handle the forms. It's not the driver for me. The driver for me is whether we've identified prospective adverse impacts and dealt with them.
Okay, so the way we
in a
do that is to
narrative.
handle the forms. One goes with the other.
I'll go with those recommendations.
All right, I do want to make the point, the applicant's not, rather the landlord's not giving you the straight story on when that code was implemented.
It is not our jurisdiction to figure out what happened.
I
Yeah,
realize.
I can only report what he reported, I can only confirm that I don't have access to the 1983 code. I couldn't, so I can't confirm what was in existence at that time.
Yeah, the 1983 comes out of the notes in the E code posting. Where they track changes
Correct,
since
correct.
83.
Yeah.
But they don't track anything before 83. So I leapt to the assumption that unless it's noted as a change subsequent to 83, it was in effect at 83. But the town clerk has acknowledged there was code well before that as well. There's
Can
no-
we-
I don't have any
We'll
rec-
get to these changes. Has it been the habit of, Dave, have you seen planning board referring stuff to the CEO? Emphatically giving information that gives him some armament to go to the landlord to insist that he comply with the zoning.
His proposal is put it as a condition in the final decision. Is that correct?
And the C&D.
Okay.
If it's an important enough seeker issue.
And the settlement of that condition would be on the code enforcement officer at a later.
Straighten it out with the code.
With the applicant.
Yeah, one way or the other. The code enforcement officer agrees with the fact that it's grandfathered, that's his decision, that's the end of the issue. If the code enforcement officer says, oh, somebody made a mistake, we need to deal with this, that's. That would be his determination of the zoning. It gets us out of the business of determining the zoning, other than looking at it and saying, oh, there might have been a mistake here. When the CEO said no other physical conditions, we just want to take a second look at it.
So yes, code enforcement officers do that kind of stuff all the time.
I'm not sure this code enforcement office will do that. I tried to reach out to them over a month ago to ask about their prior determination, seeking clarification. Unfortunately, I didn't receive return phone calls. I had to follow up numerous times. When I finally got a hold of somebody there, I was told point blank, the current code enforcement officer has no intention of revisiting the determination. Period.
Well, this would, the framework that I'm suggesting, which we may not want to do, would be when you apply for a CO, this would be one of his items to deal with. And if he said, no, we're not revisiting it, then he would just deal with it, check it off, and that would be that. I mean, it just be, make sure that you are.
I just want to give you that information that, you know, we did try to reach out to him about clarification. And it was disappointing that, you know, someone within a town office chose not to respond, but you know, you only do what you can only do.
It's up to the board, just.
All right, so let-
This, my suggestion is just get us out of the business of figuring out what the non-conforming use is, which is not where I think we should be.
All right, so let's move this along, and I think we've tried.
Yes.
Item 1,
Yeah,
impact on land. Proposal is to amend it to check yes, currently check no. The relevant action item is A. It will involve construction on land where depth of water table is less than 3 feet. That's true. However, it's
No, it's
no or small.
Yes.
does the board agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Keep going, Dave.
Then we're at 11,
Go ahead.
impact on open space and recreation. Proposal is to answer that it's currently answered no, answer that yes. And then you have to decide. I think they're all arguably no or small impact, given the available documentation.
I agree.
The all B and B, C and D.
Yeah, again, repeating, if we were to see a site plan for the apartment buildings that showed a direct impact on an identified area, which we have, that might change these answers, but based on what we know, it's no or small.
Okay, does the board agree with that?
I agree.
And the proposal
Jen?
that Dave redlined is to, because you've answered yes to both of those, you have draft language that would amend the part 3.
Okay.
And the C and D, or are you gonna, what are we gonna do that, Dave?
Well, we could decide whether to put in that condition. The C and D primarily in terms of text refers to the part 3, but it has a few other things in it, and then also has a list of conditions. So the board can decide whether we want to impose another condition there relating to this. And the chair and I had proposed different, he had a specific set of things that the applicant should do. I just said, get it straight with the CEO. Those are the moving pieces before the board. Or not doing a condition at all, because we've said it's, you know, 0 to small, and so it doesn't even get into the part 3, so we can just skip the conditions at all. If the board thinks it's trivial.
You want to do 19 and 20 first, or you want to do this?
Let's get this
text
done.
first?
Let's get this done.
Okay,
And decide whether or not we want to. Put a condition in here which says it'll have to be dealt with during the issuance of the CLO. I think that's the alternative.
Well, let's work up the part 3 first, then we can decide about the condition.
Okay,
Because Dave had language on the part 3, right?
just the part 3, right?
Right, so that is that 11B on this?
Well, you've got a little bit of language on 1 too, which we may need to.
Oh, the water table thing.
We may need to, we may need to correct the square footage in there on this.
Okay.
what do you have as a square footage?
Is it, do I reference a specific square footage or?
No, you don't,
Okay,
no,
So
do you
Dave
want
suggested,
to, now that you know?
no.
Okay,
so I guess we haven't voted on the part 3 with respect to question 1, which is the impact on land and the depth of water table, and Dave has a paragraph there on this summary finding. And I've got a couple I haven't added to
Dave, you do have the square footage in there, 50 foot by 50 foot.
Where are you?
Under summary
That's
finding
the
of the.
construction envelope, not the lease area.
Yeah, nor is it the loss of recreational space.
We agree with the 50 by 50 because that's the area of disturbance.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for the impact of land.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
Okay, so that stays in there.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
there's no, as with some of the other ones, there were conditions, but since it's no to low, there's no condition related.
Right.
Correct, correct, Dave?
yes,
All right, so everybody's all right with that language?
that's one.
Okay,
Now we got 11.
now let's do 11. Dave, go, take us through that again, Dave Church.
Well, I'm proposing, I raised the issue of 11B, C, and D, which are the proposed action may involve, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong.
No, you're right.
Right? No, I was reading land. Proposed action may result in the loss of current or future recreation resource. C, the proposed action may eliminate open space or recreation resource in an area with few such resources. And D, the proposed action may result in the loss of an area now used informally by the community as open space, as an open space resource. I checked those three. They're all no and small impact, but those are the three that jumped out, to which I, with Dave Gordon's help, sought the answer in the long next paragraph. What do you want me to read it, Rick, or?
Yeah, why don't you read it? So, well, first of all, does the board agree with no to small impact on B, C, and D?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave, with the.
No open space or recreation resource on the subject property or in the immediate neighborhood is so designated in any adopted town plan that returns you to the need question, yes or no, is it in an adopted plan? However, the proposed action is on the same tax parcel lot as an occupied multifamily residential use apartments. Current zoning standards under Town Code 14626 apply to such uses, and subsection 14026L has specific minimum standards for open space and recreation set aside in improvements in support of multifamily uses. Because the proposed action would be a second use on the same lot, such development standards apply.
Likely apply.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's, yes, likely apply. The board does not have jurisdiction to enforce zoning compliance, but instead views the prospective removal of open space or recreation space, open or recreation space as a potential adverse environmental impact. As of the date of this memo, there's no documentary or physical evidence that either open space or recreation area has ever been provided in support of the multifamily apartment residents, or whether the development of the project would remove any open space or recreation area. Therefore, where's it go to?
The planning.
Planning board will require that the required open space and recreation area be mapped on any forthcoming site plan and will meet all the standards of Town Code 14026L. The planning board will also ensure that the proposed action will not infringe or impact on such a space or area. This will include ensuring at a minimum that the proposed telecommunications facility is not on land defined as open space or recreation area, with suitable buffering of any proposed structures from the recreation area as to be defined in any final action decision.
I want to point out to the board that the language that they've just read is really the vision that the chair had suggested for getting very physical, actively involved in nailing this issue down. What I suggested would be an alternative to that, which would be just go straight it out with the CEO, and it would be a simpler condition than the language that at the end of the paragraph. So that's how that would apply.
So the language,
So that would, the alternative approach would require editing in the last, I guess, 2 sentences.
Yeah, to either do what I had suggested, or the board could not do anything if you didn't think it was worth dealing. So those are sort of the 3 options at this point. What exists now, which is what Rick had suggested, which would be a very specific morphing of the site plan, or as a CO condition, just, you know, straight getting building inspector to bless. It's really just a CO requirement, actually, would be, or do nothing. Just take it all out.
I don't think it requires action. I don't see it as open space. Honestly, I guess this is, yeah,
So you would remove those last two sentences without replacement?
I would.
Anybody else?
I concur with Lee.
Wait, what are you proposing to take out?
Last two sentences.
Yeah, starting with
The
therefore.
planning board will also,
Oh, no, your plan board also.
is it that from there on?
Actually, three sentences, right?
Yeah.
Start with therefore.
Plan,
Yeah,
Therefore, okay, yes, okay.
all right, so Dave, you're proposing to take that out.
Yeah.
The whole list of the paragraph.
Hans is for that, Jen?
I'm okay taking it out. I don't have a problem taking it back to the CEO as part of the condition.
Well, then we have to then we put in
Right.
something along the lines of what I was suggesting. It's
Yeah.
different than just taking it out.
Yes, understood. I mean, I don't know that we need to have it reflected in the site plans for our vote. But I don't object to the idea of taking it back to the CEO. as well.
Elena, do you have enough?
No, I tend to agree with the group here as far as. I agree with Mr. Roberts. Jen.
so we need a new sentence, Dave.
Yeah, therefore, the planning board will require. And what require here specifically would be a condition on the CND, the requirement to avoid a pause deck. Require that the applicant. Obtain. Building inspector or CEO. Approval. Of the. Recreational space. And open space.
Open space and recreation area,
Yeah,
open space and recreation areas.
on the site. As a condition. Of obtaining. A CO.
Everybody hear that?
Can you read it now?
Therefore, the planning board will require that the applicant obtain CEO approval of the open and recreation space on the site as a condition of obtaining a CO. And
You like it?
and if the building inspector thinks that it's fine, that's his decision.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing on all these changes from 1 to 11. And number 1, land use, and 11, recreation open space. The board is okay with the changes that Dave made with the additional change. That Dave Gordon recommended.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we need to take a vote on that?
Sure.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
That's
Hans? Alina, second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna say no.
Now, next would be to actually add the condition. Right?
Oh,
And what the condition,
We
You gotta
we
put it
just,
in the-
we just put it, we just amended the part
Gotta
three,
put it in the
but now,
CND.
now we're gonna put another condition in the CND.
yes,
That would just be another. Maybe votes.
you need to
What, we have 23 in the CND?
24.
pull it up, you got it handy?
We need to vote to
Or
amend the CND.
Stacy, is it in Manicollabby readily?
Is it?
I think so. I think it's on the agenda.
So we're amending question 11 and question,
Well,
We just did.
no, but for the vote that we're doing for the CND. No, the CND is just the one.
Condition 20,
Yeah,
25. So 20 something, we're gonna add a condition.
can we vote on that?
Well,
Okay,
as soon as-
say something.
As soon as we straighten it out, yeah.
Add a new condition.
Whatever the rest.
At the bottom.
Hang on, we're pulling up the C and D to see how many conditions. I think it's 23.
But I liked your suggestion of adding another condition, so we're not having some
Right,
sort of number.
Which will mirror the language of
There's
the,
23, so we're in
But it's
24.
not rare to do that, to condition approvals on going and straighten things out with the CEO.
no, not at all.
That's a very,
All right, so we need a condition number 24, David. Okay. You wanna dictate
condition
something?
24, well, we'll just take the same language. The applicant shall obtain CEO approval of the open and recreational space on the site as a condition of obtaining a CO.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to add that as a new condition, number 24.
second, Dave Roberts seconds. Anybody else? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
And if you can convince them that it's not necessary, that you've done it.
So if we get a CO, we're good.
Now you've got 19 and 20 now.
19 and 20.
What do you want to do?
I think we should
Go through the
go,
exercise?
I think we should go through the exercise,
Okay,
even though I think it's, well, doesn't matter what I think. Let's go through the exercise.
it matters, Rick. It really doesn't.
Okay, let's go.
19 is the 19 and 20 are new additions as of June 12th to the FEAF Part 2. 19's impact on disadvantaged communities. Proposed project may impact a disadvantaged community. My memo describes, I went through the exercise. I used the tool that DEC is now posted. The answer is no.
Agree.
Okay,
That's my
is
recommendation.
everybody all right with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Agree.
Okay, 20, future physical climate risks. The proposed project may be vulnerable to future physical climate risks or increase the vulnerability of human or ecological communities to future physical climate risks. So the sub-questions, if you want to go through these.
Yes.
Proposed action is vulnerable to damage from projected 100-year flood.
No, it's small.
Proposed action is vulnerable to damage from 500-year flood.
No, it's
No.
small.
Proposed action is in an area potentially affected by sea level rise.
No.
No. Proposed action may increase the vulnerability of human or ecological communities to the following: drought, temperature extremes, extreme storms, landslides, coastal erosion, stormwater flooding, other climate or weather hazards.
I don't see any of them. All no or small.
So it's no,
No.
20's no, if you agree.
I agree.
Yes.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So do we need to take a vote on this?
You didn't change anything.
We added those,
We added
those
two.
questions didn't exist in the, at the time when they did the first.
Yeah, but okay, so those are two different questions. How do we?
I think he's just asking if they don't need a vote on.
Well, we're changing it, so he's asking the question whether we need, whether we need to vote to change it. You know, it's your point, I think it's been superseded. But you're doing it, so questions do we need to vote on, answer yes.
Do we need to vote on this, and do you need
Yes.
a motion to
Change number 19.
change, okay.
And 20,
and
20,
20.
19 and
I
20.
make the motion to change number 19 and 20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're done with the forms. And we're done with C and D.
Okay, so we're done with the CMB.
You have to do anything on 19 and 20 in the C and D.
No,
No.
they're not.
No, I'm sorry, no, you misunderstood me. No, you got it.
Who seconded that?
Who seconded that?
Me.
All right, Dave Church, anything else? So next steps. Are. Dave. For the project.
But the
So do we need to,
we have to you defer, you've changed
The
the
C.
part 3, part 2, part 3 and the C and D. We have to repost it,
For comment, for further comments,
E and B
another month,
to the agencies.
But we should post it to the EMB.
well, then you're setting up a comment period on it.
I thought you said to. If you were gonna consider changing that, you wouldn't need another public comment period, otherwise,
Did I say that?
yeah, you did.
I don't.
Yeah, because you,
I actually don't know the answer to that
you know,
question.
that was my concern too, if you change anything, now you just restart the process over again, get inundated with more comments. And
I don't think that there's any law on this question. I mean, we could research it, but the idea of like a second an amendment to a C and D and to whether it's got how that has to be handled. We could look at it. I don't think. So it's really a question of whether we want to just run it out again. And for the applicant, I mean, you've been here a while and, you know, one way to look at it is that you want to get out. The other way to look at it is this is another added risk, so to speak, if somebody later on decides we should have done it. So we could go either way.
The
on
question
it.
is, you have a circle, and
What?
when do we jump off the circle? And seriously, because if you have another public comment period, I'm not saying yes or no, you're gonna get more comments. And then you're gonna have this consideration and then you're gonna say, hey, should we do this again?
So what I'm hearing is you want to get off and, you know, if there's a risk, you just want to take it.
Pretty sure we got it. I
Okay.
can't see, because you're changing these comments in specific response to public comments.
I get it.
So I don't see any, there are some judges that don't know what the heck they're doing. I don't see
Yeah.
many competent
A lot.
judges. What?
A lot.
The majority, so that's concern.
I have.
However-
I have the code,
Go ahead.
and this is.
617.7D.
617E, amendment of a negative, sorry,
Have a CMD, gotta look for the.
yes,
CMD.
D.
D, C and D. That's right.
It says a lead agency must rescind the CND and issue a cause staff.
That's not what we're doing.
I know.
No, that's-
we'll need to-
Prior to that, I was in that section earlier tonight.
It doesn't talk about amendments, but it does talk about amendments of a neg deck.
Silent.
And it does say you have to publish the
The
C.
lead agency must prepare a file to publish the amended.
In the regs,
In
right?
accordance with
Well, see,
617.12.
This is
For
discussed how to
amendment.
amend it.
The amended
Yeah.
negative declaration must contain reference to the original,
But that's not,
Right.
but it's not.
you gotta go to the unlisted action. I was there earlier tonight.
I think the question is there anything, Jen, that discusses the procedure for amending a C and D?
Only a neg deck,
Yeah.
but is it using the global neg deck? to
Well, even
include
even E, which is amending a neg deck, it doesn't have any comment period.
No, it
on
does
it.
not.
The question is whether the comment period in 617.7D requires a further comment period if we amend
It
the,
doesn't stipulate that.
and it doesn't say that, and, it's just, you know, whatever you feel lucky
And how
today, whatever.
substantive is the change?
Say what?
How substantive is this change?
We added
It's
some
correct.
commentary to the part 3 and we
And one
added a
new
condition to
condition.
the C and D.
Right,
And they're all no or small.
you don't have to,
I know what you're doing.
Yes.
you know where I'm going with this.
All right, so I
Well,
think
then I suggest, can I make
We
a
do have to
suggestion?
file it. All it's saying is that we have to file it.
You have
It has to be
Put it on.
filed in
If
the.
the board believes that this is what we want to do, why don't we make a motion to ratify the C and D as written?
I make a motion to ratify the.
I have a question. Are we
CND.
ratifying the one that we just amended?
Yes.
Okay, yes,
Yes.
let's so.
Yes. Dave, go ahead.
I make a motion to ratify the C and D as amended.
I'll entertain a second.
I second it.
Wait a second, so I'd like to add,
I think you got
and we
this.
will also publish this in the ENB,
Okay.
just to make sure.
Oh.
Oh, forget it.
You're
Forget it.
pursuing a regulation that requires a comment period.
Forget it. We have to put on the ENB.
EMB is for the comment period.
I wouldn't put it in the EMP. It's not,
That's 617.7D.
So you're saying we don't even need to put it on the
no,
ENB?
the EMP is,
I'll look it up, but those are parallel requirements.
Hold that resolution.
we just have to do the paperwork.
That's what makes sense to me.
I wanna make sure.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get out early because we're also gonna have a attorney. Client.
Hang on, we crisply what?
We're gonna have an attorney client session because
Okay, 17.7 D1(4).
Yeah.
Requires, in order to pass a CND, the requirement is that the board has published a notice of a CND in the environmental notice bulletin. And a minimum 30-day public comment period has been provided. So the two are hand in glove in terms of those requirements. And so if you're not gonna provide a minimum 30-day comment period, I don't know why you're publishing it in the CND.
EMB. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that back. I'll take that back. So,
As we get later, I'm gonna make more of those mistakes.
all right, so we'll go back to Dave's,
Ratifying the C and D as amended.
so that's a motion.
I second
All in favor?
it. Aye.
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 Okay,
We're done.
Good.
now we can.
What's next?
So let's see.
Draft out a final decision. That's what's next.
Yes. Did everybody hear that? We have to
No.
draft the final decision. That's next.
Yeah.
So Dave, you and I have a,
So whatever we do, the condition that we just added should also be added to the site plan approval. For the special use permit.
okay, so, is there anything else on Verizon?
No.
I want to point out one thing, Scott. You submitted a letter on this issue relating to EJ. In your letter, you basically said that EJ is only an issue for the Uniform Procedures Act and not for seeker.
I don't remember saying that.
It's,
Why did you?
I don't think I ever mentioned Uniform Procedures Act.
no, you didn't say, well, you said Article
What?
7.
What? I can see that. Well,
It is.
what I said was, it doesn't apply, and I think that's what Dave said.
All that you said is it doesn't cover seeker.
It doesn't.
And you said, basically, we're not issuing a UPA permit, like an air permit or something like that.
No, we are
Oh,
not
sorry.
subject to UPA.
Yeah,
Planning board decision, are we subject to UPA?
That-
no, I hear you saying, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yeah, I said that none of the, basically, there were no pollutants that would be covered by the EJ regulations. That's why you're not,
But, okay.
So let's just drop it.
And if we weren't in the mapped area, I was trying to make the point that it just doesn't apply.
Okay, it wasn't.
What?
Because the same
Greg?
the same legislation that produced the
You can
changes
sign
to
off.
EPA produced the changes to seeker. It was in this exact same, the two bills.
Good luck, Jack.
both of them.
All I was trying to say is I went through the ECL
What is not
and said, these 5 things that the EJ applies to, air permits, that sort of stuff.
Thank you. Good night.
It applies to seeker,
That's correct.
and that's what we're doing. And the
That's
point
correct,
was.
but I also pointed out that we're not in a mapped area, therefore, so it's not a disadvantaged area. That's how it really, did I come out and say that seeker? No, but I said it doesn't apply.
Okay,
We could agree to disagree.
the lawyers can talk over the phone tomorrow to. I wanna go into a client, attorney, meeting, should take us 10-15 minutes.
Wait,
Sure.
can you approve the minutes?
That's.
Oh,
Oh, I gave
I
you,
found the date.
okay, that was,
Couple
I
hours
make a
ago.
motion to approve the minutes.
It's
I
April
seconded.
24th, 2026. That needs to be added. It's the date of the NS pre-application meeting.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of May 11th and June 8th.
I make,
Make a motion.
I
Second,
seconded.
Wait a second.
Alina seconds it, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay,
well, can we get the motion to adjourn too before you get into the attorney meeting?
motion to adjourn.
I
Can I ask a procedural question, Rick? What's left? What is the board?
Hang on 1 second, let me,
Okay. I second.
motion,
Second.
all right, all in favor?